Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin, and this is episode 285, a celebratory the Knicks clinched the playoffs episode. I'm joined as always by my co-host Stacy, that is at Stacy Patton 89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing?
Doing all right.
Good to hear. Are you excited that the Knicks made the playoffs?
Yeah, man. I posted a picture of Obi Toppin on TV with a do-rag and sunglasses over a bunch of liquor bottles. So I'm doing pretty well.
I don't know. As long as you didn't post a picture of whatever the fuck he was wearing before the Cleveland game, I think we're okay. That feather ass jacket he was wearing. But we are joined by first-time guest on the pod, but I'm sure there are many people that are familiar with his work. His name is, you can follow him on Twitter at RWHBREW Remnant, if I remember correctly, on Twitter. And he goes by Raw Hebrew. I'm just gonna call you Mr. Raw. There you go. How are you doing today?
Hey, man, anytime it's a Knicks win, it's a good day. But especially if it's a playoff clinching win, it's a great day. So yes, we're doing good.
That is good to hear. And if anybody doesn't know, my man was one of the first content posters on YouTube, Knicks content posters anyway on YouTube. So if you have not listened to his shit, check it out.
Yeah, there was honestly a few people before me that I followed. There were like 3 different ones that before me. There 4 actually that I followed. But yeah, I've been doing it a little bit. I think like 3 years. Maybe 3 years.
Have you heard of? There's an old podcast in the day. It was the first Knicks podcast. It's by Mikey Cook's friend of the pod, and it was called the Tommy D Sucks Ass Pod. Have you heard of that?
No, I never.
I think that I heard that was actually the first Knicks blog.
I've never heard of that.
You probably listened to that. That was a Mikey Cook's blog.
I've never heard that before.
Looks like we lost Shwin. All right. Well, thanks so much for hopping on. So know you're feeling pretty good. The Knicks played a team that was a little bit shorthanded tonight, to say the least. Obviously not a team trying to make the playoffs. Do you take much away from this game besides the obvious, like, oh, we clinched the playoff spot?
In these type of games, Stacy, there's more pressure on a team that's trying to clinch.
Yeah.
So sometimes you'll get in your own way trying to clinch. And then with a team like the Wizards, like you said, they have nothing to play for except how high they're going to draft this year. But the young guys they put in would love to 2 things: to show out on Madison Square Garden floor, and then secondly, to not allow the Knicks to clinch. So that combination creates a synergy to what you saw today. So I discount any sloppy play from the Knicks because of those things. And then of course you have a guy like Obi Toppin who's playing for more than just this game. So that those type of things to me combined for the game. So I look at it a little differently in terms of, I don't super overanalyze the game. In this one, they played good enough to win, and that's really what they need to do, get that 46 win. And so I think this helps a lot. Now it's can we get, how much more can we get? Can we get 48? I thought 45 or more, but now we got 46. So let's see, can they get 47 or 48?
Yeah, I mean, I think at 47 they would clinch, I believe. I think the tiebreaker is a little murky. Mm-hmm. But if they get 47, I think they would be assured of the 5 seed at this point. So they asked Tibbs, this was a great Tibbs answer. They asked him, like, would you rest starters if you have, if you're not, would you rest starters once you've clinched a playoff spot? He's like, I'm not familiar with the concept. But he did say afterwards they have different goals, and then once those goals are met, so that to me was like, if they get the 5 seed, probably guys like Brunson for sure, even guys like Robinson or Quickly, they might reduce. But I think 47 is that number. I think someone posted about the tiebreakers today. I don't know if that's 100% right. But the other thing I'll ask is, if you're not, I don't know if you're. This was in terms of takeaways. This was the.
Yes.
Did we lose you?
No. I think he's there.
Okay.
Hey, Shwin, sorry, if you dropped, we talked the whole time.
Yeah, that's fine. So just I'll tell him to eliminate this part. Just keep going. It's fine.
Okay, so the game before this against Cleveland was the opposite of a meaningless game, right? That is the team we're most likely to be playing in the first round. Obviously no Jared Allen, no Julius Randle, but it was still, and you see, my feeling was it was coached like a playoff game. Tibbs clearly directed Jalen Brunson to push. I've never seen the Knicks push off of free throws or off of made shots, and they did that constantly. And you could tell why, because they wanted Jalen Brunson to hunt Donovan Mitchell and other players who couldn't guard him. And the Cavs have their own kind of checks on that, and the way the Knicks dealt with traps, the way the Knicks sent switches instead of traps, those kind of things. It felt like a playoff game. So I'll say this: if you don't have any takeaways from the Wizards game, did you have takeaways from that Cleveland game besides?
Oh yeah,
being
definitely.
awesome series?
Oh yeah, because like you said, that was a playoff atmosphere right there, and everybody, the coaches, the players it was like a playoff game, and I feel like they were pushing it because, in my opinion, they run better with Obi on the floor than with Julius on the floor, and so they wanted to take advantage of that speed. And to me, but who knew that Jalen was going to go 18 for 32 and drop 48? So that kind of eased that a little bit because they didn't need as much because the guy was just outrageous, attacking. So, but it showed a couple of things. Number one, to me, this is not the Knicks of 2 years ago. This is not going to be that type of playoff series. They're not going to get beat 4-1 against Cleveland. And so this is going to be a dogfight. And that game showed it. Now, I think they're going to be a better team when Allen and Okoro return to the lineup. But I still think the Knicks could beat them. And so it's not going to be a slam dunk. They could lose. But this is definitely a 50-50 battle right here. This is not – I know Cleveland's going to be favored, but I still think the Knicks have a 50-50 chance of beating them in the playoff series.
Assuming both teams are full strength, right?
Yeah. And I'm assuming, even though I'd be honest with you, I expect Julius Randle to miss the first 2 games, and I still think the Knicks can split in Cleveland.
Well,
yeah, I actually, so there are a couple of things. First, I want to just say this, I am in the process actually of watching the Knicks play the Wizards tonight. I did not watch this game live. The Evan Fournier minutes are, let's just say that it is very justifiable why he was dropped from the rotation. And leave it at that. But I think a really underestimated element of all this stuff, and I've talked about this before in previous situations, like when the Knicks had that epic double overtime win, right, against Boston, and then that's a 9th straight win. Everything is great. Everything is wonderful. And the next game, right, they play the Hornets at home, and it's like, they start off slow. They have this huge second quarter, we're just going to steamroll them. But they were not locked in really at any point in that game defensively. And I think what people really underestimate is, do I think the Knicks are a bad defensive team? No. Do I think that they're underperforming what they're capable of in defense? Absolutely. But I also just think an 82 game regular season has a lot of highs and lows. And I'm not just talking about highs and lows in terms of your on-court performance, but also emotional swings.
Sure.
And that game against Cleveland on Friday was
followed by a win over, we can shit on Miami all we want, but
right,
they're still a rival, and that's a tough team to play.
And that was a game that was very, I mean, it was an emotional high, right? It was you're playing this game, and I know, I thought it was kind of weird the way people were portraying it, where it was if this is the biggest game they've played in 7 years, and I'm I don't know about all that. It's important, but even if they lose this, they still control their destiny. It's a very important game, but it's not the end of the world if they lose it type of deal. Right. But it was an important game. You could sense that level of importance.
And I don't think there's never sorry, there's never a non-important game against Miami. You know,
No,
so.
I'm with you, and like my thing is just like, you know, it was a big game, and they won that game, and then you go and you play this game against Cleveland on Friday, right? You get the news that Julius Randle, your all-star, all-NBA forward, he's out. He's going to miss a bunch of time moving forward, and it's like this huge thing, and then you got to go play this game against Cleveland, who is, I mean, look, no matter what anybody says, these two franchises, for as long as Donovan Mitchell is there, are inexorably tied together. They are tied together. Like that is always going to be part of the narrative when they play each other. And you go and you play this game, right? Jalen Brunson, his second game back after injury, he goes off. He goes shot for shot with Mitchell. He outperforms Mitchell. I mean, you mentioned this, and it's like, you know, the speed, the tempo, that entire game, the intensity of it is a totally different thing. And you win this epic game, right? And not just you win it, but the way they won both these games, the Miami game and the Cleveland game, down the stretch where like really they just locked the fuck in on defense and bludgeoned those teams. Like they bludgeoned. I mean, that last 4 minutes against Cleveland, that is probably the best defensive stretch in a key moment I've seen from the Knicks since like 2000. I'm not even joking when I say that. Like last night, for whatever reason, my YouTube was suggesting all kinds of like, 99 Knicks, 2000 Knicks. So I was watching some of these games and I'm like, yeah, look, like the defense was great, but they're not like you watch the league now and you watch the league then, like there's a physicality to that era that is unique to itself. But the stress that you like that the talent level in the league and like what skill sets are in the league now put on defenses stretches you in a totally different way. And you look at I'm not going to turn this into a shit on RJ Barrett pod. All I'll say is that like that closing lineup against Cleveland, right? It's Brunson, and then you've got Quick, Grimes, Hart, and Hartenstein. Those four guys behind Brunson, who is, let's be quite honest, is a defensive liability. They have the capacity to trap, to recover out to a shooter, run them off the line, make a second rotation, make a third rotation. Like they can do all of those extra effort things to cover for the fact that he is a liability on defense. And they executed stuff in that closing stretch against Cleveland that I don't like. I truly mean this is a credit to Tibbs, that I think he has struggled with to coach guys up on, like trapping and just like, what are your rotations after a trap? Where do you go? Like I remember games early in the season where he would try to like, oh, we're going to go small now. We're going to trap. And it was like, yeah, this doesn't work if nobody has any idea what to do once they like beat the trap, like where the rotations go. Anyway, the point is though, like you win this epic emotional game. You get the news yesterday that this team's Washington's three best players are out, right? And then you get the news before tip-off that Monty Morris is also out. And that's literally 4/5 of their starting lineup from opening day. And on top of that, like, again, you're coming off these emotional
And they didn't
highs.
tell you that they traded for Steph Curry and put him in Corey Kispert's jersey. So.
By the way, no, people just don't know. They haven't been watching the Wizards. Kispert's
legit. I think a lot of he was a Knicks target. Like he can shoot.
Yeah, he's been balling since the
It was the shit
especially.
when he would drive in and hit a contested midi that went off the back of the rim, bounced 5 feet in the air, and went in. That was the stuff that pissed me off.
I will take your word for it because, as I said, I have not watched this game yet. But like, my point is, I'm okay that this game wasn't perfect as I'm watching right now. I'm okay that like there was a little bit of a letdown because I think it's absurd to expect these guys to just be perfect throughout. And you look around some of the games today around the league, right? Minnesota, full strength. They lost to Portland running a skeleton squad out there. The Kings, who have been awesome. They've been on a tear. They lost to the fucking Spurs today at home. And the Spurs are the worst team in the Western Conference. They have the worst net rating in the league by like a full 1.5 coming into today's games.
Did you
like,
see
their coach must suck?
Denver lost to the Pelicans a couple of nights ago by 19 in Denver.
Yep.
And then Boston destroys the Bucks by 41 in Milwaukee.
Yeah, like the regular season, and we all, like, I do this all the time, right? We all forget it. Like, it's a long season. There are always going to be weird results.
That's right.
The importance of it is, like, do you get the results that you need? And the Knicks got the result they needed today. And, like, ultimately, if there were some things that sucked about the performance, fine. Like, you deal with that and you move on. But let's be real. Evan Fournier is not going to play a fucking single playoff moment. He's not going to play a single minute in the playoffs.
No, but that's what was kind of impressive was that like they played one. I mean, I was talking with RawHebrew about this before. They played like somewhere between 1 and 2 quarters of actually good Knick basketball. I would lean closer to a quarter, and they still scraped them. That's the funny part of that is because the Wizards aren't very good. But like this team, like if they played the way they did against the Cavs, they would win by 40.
Well,
Like it's a sign of a good team when like you can just like mail it in and still win.
Well, look, we're all Knicks fans, so we've all sat through, 18 years, 19 years, 20 years of just of game
20th
of
being
being.
It wasn't even his.
But like we've seen games where we're the Wizards, right? Where we're the Wizards, and it's like for a half, for 3 quarters, we're like, oh man, we're in this, we're fighting the good fight, we're right there, and then the other team is like, okay, we're gonna try now, and it's over. It's over in like 5 minutes. Guess what? Good teams aren't good just because they play hard for 48 minutes a night. Good teams are good because they can take halves off against inferior opponents and then just dial it the fuck up and take it down. And like that, if anything, I'm actually encouraged a little bit by what we've seen from this team in recent weeks, where it feels like there's games where I'm like, are you like, I'm not saying you're not trying, but you're probably not like as focused as you maybe should be. I think we've seen that especially with, Julius on defense a bit, Jalen on defense a bit. I think even Quick's defense over the last week or so, 2 weeks, has dipped a little bit. Like Grimes had a stretch earlier in the season where it was like, I was like, do you remember how to fight over screens? Like, are you good? Like, but these are parts of, you can get away with this stuff when you have the talent. And I guess ultimately all I'm saying is like, as I'm watching this game, it feels like whenever the Knicks actually needed a bucket or they needed to get a stop it feels like, okay, we can do this. And the key part is like, again, they won by 9 points. I think when I checked the score,
They're probably like 20 in the fourth. So
right.
They fucked around, and like I was saying before, like they were throwing like lob. They threw a ton of lobs and missed a ton of lobs. And they were just like, I thought they were messing around a lot. I knew that the other team wasn't a match for them, which is dangerous. But now that we have to win, I'm like, all right, it's fine.
It's dangerous, but it's one of those things like you have to let, again, it's a long regular season. Sometimes you have to let these guys fuck around. Like, you got to let them just, have a little fun sometimes. And I'm sure
it also seems like a team that's just like, we're a playoff team. Like, it seems like a team for a while. Like when they had to play Charlotte, and like I think this is part of the emotional letdown thing. It's like you play Boston, you go to double overtime.
Yeah.
And you know that, all right, like we've done this. We've beaten Boston. We've beaten all these teams. We have a good record. The next step, like the season's success, is going to be judged on, can we win in the playoffs? Right? I mean, I'm not saying that I'm judging it like that. I think that it should still be viewed as a success if they get the 5 seed or whatever. And I'm saying like the next goal for them is to like do something in the playoffs, because they've already proven that they're a good regular season team. And then after a win like that, where you're like, that was a step to show that we can beat Boston in Boston Garden. We can take down Donovan Mitchell on a night when he's, shooting flames out of his ass. And then you have to go back and play Washington. Then you have to go back and play Charlotte. And in those games, then you have to go back and like, oh my, and then like, as annoyed as I am that Taurean Prince is going 10,000 for 10,000 from 3, or like Kispert is cooking them, I'm sure it's way worse for them. They're like, bro, I just want to get to the playoffs. Leave me alone. Or maybe it isn't. I don't know. But the point I'm making is like, it has felt a lot at times like a team that's just like, the next challenge is the playoffs. Like when we play playoff teams, we're going to try to show out. But other than that, it's tough for them to get up for a matchup. It has felt like that to me for a couple of weeks.
I have trouble taking seriously anyone that at the beginning of the season was saying the Knicks would not make the play-in, or because the East is so much better, they're only going to win 37 games, but they'll be better than they were last year with the same 37. I have a problem with those people trying to claim that unless they win this playoff series, this is a failure.
I agree.
That is absolutely ridiculous.
So that wasn't what I was trying to say. What I'm saying is that I think for the Knicks themselves, the next goal for them as a team in their
Well, as a
mindset.
franchise.
But
Yeah.
no, like if you're Jalen Brunson, if you're Emmanuel Quickly, like your goal is like if you just beat the Heat and the Cavs, or you beat the Celtics, like, and then you have to come back and play the Hornets, or you have to come back. Like, don't you think they'd probably have a little bit of a tough time getting up for that? Because the next, it's not how they're going to be judged. It's like the next thing they want to find out about themselves is, can we win a playoff series?
Well, they do. It would right now, because of the team that they have and the growth maturity of the players they drafted for the most part, and then adding important pieces like a Jalen Brunson and a Josh Hart. If you bring, and I've been saying this for a while, you bring this exact same team next year, they're 50+ win team. And I would say next year they must win a first round series. Next year. This year, to finish in the 5th seed in a battle with Cleveland that goes 6 or 7 games, I'll take that as a success for this year. But next year, I'm looking for them to win. Now, if they happen to beat Cleveland and win the first round series, first of all, you're going to see New York City go absolutely insane if they do that. Absolutely wild. So, and it's going to be fun, but and they could do that. But to me, just finishing in the 5th seed and seeing the development of Quentin Grimes, seeing how the team has moved forward with Jalen Brunson, seeing the development of Emmanuel Quickly and Mitchell Robinson and guys like that.
And Deuce.
Yes, I'm very happy with what they have done. So to me, just this is right now, we've gotten a successful season. Now let's see, like you said, can we win a playoff series? How quickly can we get to that next level? Because next year, it's got to be, you got to win at least one round. You got to finish in the top 5 or 4, and you got to win one round.
And that I agree with that to an extent, but I'm saying in the meantime, do you think that for the players on the floor, the Charlotte game, the Washington games, do you feel like they are almost like, ugh, like I just want to get to the
because see, like you guys have been saying, so they play Boston, double overtime, they win.
No Brunson in that game.
And they lose to Charlotte. But you understand that, and it's not, I don't believe it's like them purposely turning it on and off. It's just harder to get up for some games than it is for others. It's not going to be hard for them to get up for the playoffs. They're going to be up for the playoffs.
Just watch the Warriors this year. Like the Warriors, you can visibly see them. Like, I watch a lot of their games because I just like, they're late, like they're West Coast team, so you got to get them after the Knicks. Steph is one of my one of my favorite, one of my 5 favorite players ever. Like, so it's like I'm always tuning in to watch them, but it's like you can literally just see games where even that. So they beat the Pelicans right earlier this week, and in that game they were down 20, and it's like you can just see like they're mailing it in. And then the Pelicans started chirping a little bit, right? They started chirping a little bit. And then I was like, all right, well, you're going to fuck around and find out. Because, like, you woke us up. And people have talked about this like Jordan, right? There's that story that J.R. Ryder talks about where he's talking about, they're playing the Bulls and they're, like, up after 3 quarters. And J.R. Ryder's having a good game. And Kevin Garnett, who's, like, a first or second year player in the league, he's, like, feeling really, he's feeling real good. And he's like, he can't guard you. Like, when they're walking to the bench, Mike can't guard you. And then Mike comes down the 4th quarter and he's Mike. And it's like, you don't wake up a sleeping giant. But also, it's hard for those teams, for good teams at times, when like they're playing an opponent where you're like, they shouldn't even be on the floor with us to get up for it. It's hard. But the problem is, at the NBA level, if you're not up for it on a given night, you'll get punished. You'll get punished.
Beat. Now, I remember the Lakers once, James Worthy, they had a team that's with Jabbar, Magic, Worthy, Michael Cooper. They had a team that pretty much stayed together for most of the 80s. And Worthy made a comment that I'll never forget, and it's true. He said, most nights we are so in sync, it's just us and the basketball. Like there's no opponent. And when teams are so in sync in the continent, like you mentioned the Warriors, so you're talking about Draymond, Steph, Thompson, Clay, so they're so in sync, having won 4 championships, that the opponent almost is irrelevant. And now they got, I think, a new injection with Wiggins. When Wiggins comes back, I now favor them to be higher than they might have been without him. To me, he was the key for them winning the last championship they won. So, but they're so in sync with what they do that, it's hard for them to get up to some games, but they've won enough chips to know, like you said, any given night, a team could beat us, and they know that. But when they need to be the Warriors, they're the Warriors.
Yeah. And I think like to what you're talking about there, so much of that is just like when you've played so much basketball together,
Right.
you almost instinctively like know where he's going to be. I know where he's going to
Right.
be. I know who's going to bring it tonight. I know who maybe had 2 drinks too many last night. Like, you know, all these things. And like this, like what I love about this Knicks team, and I got to say this, I just want to say this, to be completely honest. I love this Knicks team more than any Knicks team since 99. Like, I think they feel like as great as that 2020-2021 season was, that was like a very try hard, we're gonna work our ass off, we're gonna run more than you, we're gonna just it was not like a team blessed with a bunch of talent. It was a team that just grinded and grinded and grinded.
Definitely overperformed. Overperformed. Yeah.
And this team feels different because it's like, one, you actually have real talent, and then two, on top of that, like there are guys now like Julius, I'll be totally honest, like, it's not my favorite player. And I still like, and I'll say this, we're 2-0 without him. I know that I'm not invalidating his season at all. But it's like, there's a play style difference when he's on versus when he's off that I think is like worthy of a discussion. Anyway, my point is like, Julius has been here now. This is his 5th year, I think, with the Knicks. Okay.
Let me see.
2019-20, or so fourth season.
Yeah, it's his 4th season. Yeah.
4th season with the Knicks. This is RJ's 4th season with the Knicks. This is Quickly's 3rd season. This is Obi's 3rd season. Like, you have, and like Brunson, I know he just got here, but like that motherfucker as soon as Leon Rose signed, like, you know, he may as well have just been a Knick, right? But there are guys, and even Tibbs, right? Tibbs has been here his 3rd year. Leon Rose, this front office, we know this about this franchise. There's not. Continuity isn't. We've not been blessed with continuity. That's probably the best way to put it.
Right.
That we have that continuity now, and it feels like we're building with something. And then we have talent, and then like you mentioned, you see the development of Quickly, Grimes, Deuce, who is good, and I think would be a rotation player on a lot of teams, but because of the talent level our team isn't. I mean, you just see all this stuff coming together. You see a trade like the Hart trade. You know, the Hart trade is such a just smart team building trade. Like it just makes so much sense. And it feels like this team has come together in a very nice, organic way. And on top of it, this season they've had, right? Like they've had a lot of ups, they've had a lot of downs, but they've battled through a lot of things and they've come out on the other side of those things better for it. Right. And I just feel like there's a real character and a real bond with this team that really, like, I don't know, it speaks to me as a fan, as corny as that sounds. Like, I feel like an actual connection with this roster, with the guys on this team. And, you know, it's like why when RJ Barrett has a bad stretch of games, I'm like, I hate you right now. Not because I actually hate you. It's because I love you. It's because I love you. I want you to be good. I'm so invested in you being good. And it's rough to see that, but it's because you actually care about this team. And I just think, like, you know, I honestly just can't say enough about the competitive level of this team in terms of, like, they like that Dallas loss they had earlier in the season. I was like sick about that game for like 3 or 4 days. I was sick about that game. And
but didn't they come back the next night and start the 8-game winning streak?
That was after the 8-game winning streak. But they lost the next game to San Antonio.
Oh,
and I was
okay.
And I was like, oh man, is this like, are we gonna get the Knicks experience now? Are we gonna have, like, you know? And every time you thought maybe they're gonna let go of the rope, maybe it's falling apart, it hasn't. And you know why it hasn't? Is because they're actually a good team. They're actually a good team. And again, I just can't say enough about, like, you know, I've been really critical of Tom Thibodeau. I've been critical of various Knicks, Julius Randle specifically, but like all these guys have contributed to the season we've had, and all of them deserve the credit for it. And it's really nice that they won this game tonight and they took care of business and whatever. And, you know, if we want to sit here and people want to nitpick this thing, that thing, whatever, cool. But, like, I think it's okay for one night to just be like, hey, the Knicks won an imperfect basketball game. And that's okay because they're not a perfect team, but they have definitely outperformed the general expectations that people had for them. And I don't just mean that in terms of players. Like, I think Tibbs, this is easily, to me, like, his development this year as a coach, especially the last 2 months, like, extremely impressed by it.
I
Extremely.
had said before the season this would be his best coaching job, and that it really it's not any change in him. It's the stars aligning between the way he puts his rotations out and the players that he puts in his rotations coming of age so that they can get in his rotations. Which I know myself, I was frustrated last year that he didn't play like a Deuce more minutes. And he starts to say something like Alex Burke is our best option at point guard. That kind of stuff was driving me crazy, but it's just how he thinks. Whereas this year I think we were going to have IQ running it if we didn't get Brunson, but we got Brunson. So we had a point guard. So now with that, and then guys like Obi, guys like Deuce, guys like, I didn't know we were going to get Josh Hart, but Quentin Grimes, I felt like Quentin Grimes was going to be the starting 2 guard in July. And so I knew that this would be his best coaching job because everything was aligning together with his style for this to work. And a lot of people were a little short-sighted because they didn't come out the gate well. But if you look at it, Tibbs's teams never come out the gate well. They always do better in the second half of the season, always. And then it's just so ironic that 2 years ago, they made a trade for Derrick Rose at the deadline. Yeah. And then he catapults them into the 4th seed they went like 9 in a row. This year they do the same thing. They get Josh Hart and they went 9 in a row still. So it's just a lot of parallels. But they were going to play their best ball at this stage. Miami's very similar, defensive oriented coach, a gritty team. They always play their best basketball down the close of the season. And so that was coming. Now we're going to see playoff Tibbs, playoff Brunson. You're going to see how this works out.
Well, Tibbs to me is the big, like for him, I feel like the playoffs is really important. And I don't care. I'm with you. Like, I don't care if they, I mean, I care. Obviously, I'd love if they win the series. I want them to win the series. But if they match up against Cleveland, like, I want to open this up to both of you guys. What I thought, my main takeaway from that game on Friday was this, okay? There were a lot of people that were like, well, they didn't have Jared Allen, okay? And there's 2 parts of this that I just reject entirely. The first being, we've beaten them with their 4 guys. Like, we've beaten them when they've had Allen, Mobley, Garland, Mitchell. We've already seen that, okay? And I think one of those games, we didn't have Mitch. So, like, I don't think, like, we only won because they didn't have Jared Allen. That's bullshit to me. Second, when they don't have Jared Allen and they have to play Mobley at the 5, guess what happens? The spacing gets a lot better for them offensively. A lot better. And guess what happens? It's a lot harder to defend Donovan Mitchell when you're like, well, if he gets by me, he's just going to jam it because the defense is like way more spread out. But like that is the best offensive spacing the Cavs are ever going to have. And you took their best shot. You took their absolute best shot. I mean, Mitchell in that first quarter, especially, that was an unbelievable performance. And you were down 5. And like, yes, of course, Brunson going off helps, right? But between him and Garland, those guys were balling out and you just kept staying in the game. You kept staying in the game. You kept staying in the game. And once they cooled off, once they came back down to earth, it was over. Like it really was over because to me, I thought the entire game, the Knicks were getting better quality shots than the Cavs were getting. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I mean, I was just going to say, like, my thing with watching that game, I was like, and we don't have Julius Randle. So, like, to me, I watched that game and I'm like, I know, like, Tibbs may not lean into it. And that's his own thing as a coach. That's like one of his things he maybe has to get over. But like this team has a variety of options, of lineups, of looks they can give you. They have a variety of play styles they can give you. I think RJ had a very interesting comment after the game where he mentioned how, like, he said basically that. And he also mentioned how, like, you know, when, like, I mean, and Donovan Mitchell even mentioned this after the game where he's like, when Julius isn't in there and Obi is, the tempo increases and you've got to run with these guys. And that's a totally different thing. But we've also seen them when they played with Julius against that Cavs team, they're really physical and they can just beat the shit out of these guys inside. And like, that's the thing that stood out to me about that game. And I was like, okay, we didn't have the same offensive physicality, raw brute force that Julius brings to the table, but we could beat them a different way. And at the end of the day, defensively, I thought we were physical with them. And I thought we made them feel us throughout the game. And when you keep, it's like a boxing fight, right? It's like heavyweight boxers. You just keep going. And that 10th, that 11th, that 12th round, your opponent starts to feel it. And maybe his guard drops a little bit and he can't counter. And like, That's what it felt like to me. I mean, especially that last 4 minutes. I just can't get over that. Where it was like you took their soul. They had nothing coming down the stretch of that game. They were just flailing for options. I mean, you had Garland on a fast break, just desperately trying to draw contact, like just jumping into quickly, hoping to get a call. And when you see stuff like that, again, like my main takeaway though was the Knicks have a lot. They have counters. They have depth. They have a lot of different ways they can present their talent. Cleveland doesn't have that. Cleveland does not have that.
The thing is, though, I mean, I am not trying to make an excuse for Cleveland, but they are the second best defensive team in the NBA.
Yep.
They only give up 107 points a game. They gave a 130 to the Knicks. So that's and I feel like that's. I mean, like you said, I agree with you. The Knicks, if I'm correct in regurgitating a little in the shorter sense, what you said is they can beat you in a number of ways. The Knicks, they can beat you in more than one way, which obviously they've shown. But without both Allen and Okoro on the same night in a playoff type atmosphere, it's going to be pretty tough for them. And that's why they had to have a guy like Mitchell go off and try to outscore the Knicks, because they were not going to just. The Knicks were not going to just be held to 107 points, right? And they have like the second biggest point differential. They have like a 5-point differential. So for the Knicks to beat them by 14 was a major, like you said, that just shows they can beat you. And like you said, they beat them with full strength and without full strength. So,
and they're 30-9 at home now after that game. So
they're
tough,
team. Man. Yeah. They're very tough. But the Knicks, like you said, if the playoffs are played the way they normally are played, which means you're going to have a lot of half-court physical basketball. I like the Knicks' chances in that, especially when Julius comes back. I like the Knicks' chances in that.
Stacy, thoughts?
I think it helps to get physical with Mobley. It's pretty like Mitchell Robinson dominated him on the glass. Hartenstein was very effective on the glass too.
Shout out Hartenstein, by the way. He's been awesome the last couple of months.
He's been awesome. If he played like this all year, he'd be stealing Emmanuel Quickly 6th Man of the Year, at least in my eyes. That's not a joke. His impact.
No, I know he's been awesome. He's been awesome.
But with I'll push back a little bit, because I'll say I think a big part of why the Knicks were so successful on offense. Going back to preseason, we saw that when the Cavs have two bigs in, when they have Jared Allen and Evan Mobley in, and Jalen Brunson, gets downhill in the half court with a defender there, it was tough for him to finish over that length, even from that 10 to 15 foot area. That's just like they can throw you multiple bodies. They can mess up. They can throw a Jared Allen at you, send a help defender to tag Julius, and still have Evan Mobley waiting on the lob to Mitch. So I think, even without Jared Allen, and then they also have guys like Lamar Stevens, who they threw at Jalen Brunson a lot. So I think what Tibbs, one of his best strategies was again, running off of makes. I thought that was very important for them to play with that pace. And so I think that it's kind of I think that should be kind of they want to do both. If you can get Jalen Brunson the ball with a head start, or Quickly did this too, by the way. Quickly had a few transition buckets where he just caught them napping. If you can get downhill and force them to keep up with that before they can get that defense set, and they do. I mean, the Cavs have some shitty defenders. The Cavs also have Mobley, Allen, Okoro, Stevens. They have good defenders. So if you can get them down there, and specifically you can get, I think the way the Knicks treated that game was to hunt Donovan Mitchell out at all times. They got down in transition and they said, Brunson, if you get Mitchell on you, cook. If they got down in transition and the Cavs got set up, they said, whoever Mitchell is guarding, whether that's IQ, whether that's Hart, whoever that is, go set a screen for Brunson and get that switch. And if they don't switch, if they hedge, find the outlet. They killed the Cavs. But to answer your question, I think pace is going to have to be a part of it. That's number one. And it'll be interesting to see if they can keep pushing the ball once Randle comes back. I'm a little more optimistic than other people. We saw that even last year, they were able to play it with high pace for times with Randle. And then the other thing I'll say is that on the other, I think that the Cavs are really in a bind because if you want to punish the Knicks at full strength, can put Grimes on Mitchell, and they can put RJ on Garland, right? And I think that at full strength, the Knicks would hide Brunson on.
Yeah, they could put him on anybody except Allen. Pretty much whoever's going to be hanging outside.
So they put him on Okoro. Okoro has been shooting better, but he's not a shooter.
No,
you live with if Okoro's going to get 12 shots,
right?
I'll take that. Yeah,
we want Okoro shooting 20 shots. So
it's even like when the Knicks put Quickly on Smart, and Quickly is a better defender than Brunson. But even if they put Brunson on Smart, if the Celtics countered us as let's post up Marcus Smart and ISO him 12, 15, 20 times a game, like that's a win for us. So you do that. So the Cavs are in a bind where they could do that, or they can play LeVert to say we're going to punish you. But then you're in a situation where now you lose the ability to put Okoro on Brunson on offense, right? So they're in that kind of tough spot. And one thing I'll push back on with Shwin is that, Shwin Cash.
Shwin Cash.
Right
here. You may not recognize me.
So the
oh shoot. I was gonna say Shwin Cash. He's looking. I mean, she's a little bit prettier, I think.
Less facial hair for sure. The spacing, I would push back that I don't think the Cavs really have a great spacing lineup, because Lamar Stevens, at least Tom Thibodeau doesn't seem to think so, because the Knicks were willing to leave Lamar Stevens wide open. If they go Okoro at the 4, they'll do the same thing. So the only guy that really had success there was Dean Wade, but the Knicks killed him on the glass.
Osman was pretty good in this game too.
But did Osman play the 4 at all? That's the only thing.
I think he played a little bit.
He played 3 mostly, but he did play a little 4.
Okay, so those are the 2 guys at the 4. But they're gonna get killed up, especially by Randle. But even Obi and with Mitch, they had success. And a lot of times they have to box out Mitch, because if Brunson gets the paint, Mobley has to come help. So like the thing is, like, there are a lot of, I don't want to say no-win situations for the Cavs, but the Knicks have the ability to put a lot of very tough situations on the Cavs.
They match up well with them. The Knicks do. There are 2 teams in the East I really like. They match up well with Boston, and they match up well with Cleveland. I like.
And the Boston thing, I didn't like before the season. I didn't see that. Like, I didn't see us matching up well with them. But I agree with you. Like,
and that was before like RJ kind of had a not great defensive season. Right. And if you told me before the season that, I mean, I knew Boston's best 2 players were their wings, and you said also your, star wing prospect is going to have a bad defensive year. I was like, how would we outplay them? But they've done better almost everywhere else.
Well, I think the main thing with them is, and this has been a problem for them going back to last year, and I think it was a big reason why they lost in the finals. I mean, obviously Steph he gives everybody problems, but they're just not. They don't defend guards very well. Like, Brunson has torched them. Quickly has torched them this year. Like, they don't defend the guard. And I think it's actually gotten worse now, because Smart, to me, looks like he's lost a half a step. He's not as good as he was last year or the year before defensively, to me, anyway. But, like, I agree with you. I think we match up well with both those teams. And I'm actually curious about this, because I know it's good that you're on with Stacy, who is part of the same belief as you here. And that belief is that Deuce McBride should be playing many minutes. He should play a lot. And I think you were a big proponent of his when we drafted him.
At West Virginia. Yeah, I wanted him and Grimes. Those are the 2 guys. Well, actually, I wanted Deuce and I wanted Murphy III. Those are the 2 guys I really wanted. But Murphy III went earlier, and then I wanted Grimes. I had Grimes behind Murphy III.
Yeah, and I'm curious to get your thoughts on this, because I thought a reason why we did not that he was driving the team or anything, but like, I love Deuce in this matchup with Cleveland. I think he is like the type of defensive guard that is like, you want him on the floor against Garland. You want him on the floor against somebody like Donovan Mitchell. Like, honestly, one of my concerns is, if we're at full health against Cleveland, is that he doesn't see the floor.
Right.
Because I just think he's such a problematic guy for them very specifically. Very, very specifically. He matches up with their guards very well. And I wanted to raise this because Stacy has kept the faith with Deuce through his shooting struggles so far in the league. He's consistently maintained that, if the shot comes around, we're talking about a very clear plus rotation player. I mean, honestly,
Mike Bream said if he got starters minutes, he'd be all NBA defense. And that takes more than just defense. Like, I'm telling you, the thing is, we've got guys like him and Obi that they can't play those spot minutes. That's not their game. But if you let them sweat, you let them get 20 minutes or more, you're going to see a different player. And so I wasn't worried about his shooting because it's a function of the fact that he's coming in cold. He gets 30 seconds here or 3 minutes here. I don't expect him to shoot in those situations. He's out there for defense. But the times that, and I think it's statistically proven, that if he gets 20 minutes or more or 15 minutes or more, the Knicks win like 70% of those games. So just for that, I would have him in the lineup, for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you look at the form, there's nothing egregious there. He's a 40% three-point shooter in college, good free throw shooter in the pros. I've never been concerned about that. And I don't think, and for what it's worth, I mean, watch how defenses treat him like he's, Andre Roberson or something? No, they close out.
Yeah.
So, it's not, it's like defenses know he can shoot. You can look at him and shoot and like, oh, that's a shooter. He misses a lot, but it's fine. And I do like that he's been more aggressive. His feel has gotten better. I liked him. I think the one thing is that
had a nice connection with Hartenstein.
A great connection with Hartenstein. The one thing with him is like he's built. I mean, he's a football player in high school. He's built like a linebacker. He's built like a big dude. And I don't see him being physical on his takes as much. He's starting to get that. And that was in college. That was the thing for me. I was like, he used to take he was really good at pull up mid range, really good at pull up threes, but he didn't get to the rim much, despite being a big dude with good athletic ability. And I was like, well, he's playing with two bigs, it could be a spacing issue. But that was what's really been worrisome to me. It's like, that's fine. Like if he turns into Javon Carter, like that's not a bad thing at all. But I like in college, I was really high on his upside because I was like, man, if he gets to play without those two bigs and he gets to like put that, because I know nobody wants Deuce McBride's shoulder in their chest.
Yeah.
If he gets to do that, he could really be a lot more than he's shown. And, he's starting to be more aggressive off the dribble. I think the next step is becoming more physical. He plays with two of the more physical guards in the league, and Quickly and Brunson. So hopefully he's absorbing from them in practice. But he's a plus player. Like if Deuce McBride is your 10th man, I mean, no offense to the Frank Hive, Shwin, maybe you disagree. I don't know. Like Deuce is better than Frank ever was.
We're not. Come on, guys.
I was Frank Hive.
Guys, we're not doing this. We're not slandering. We are not slandering we're not slandering my French son.
No,
by definition, it's not slander if it's true.
No. But the thing is that every time Frank would get a chance to show what he got, he's pulling his groin, man. It's like, I don't know what he's doing with his groin, but it's always pulled. The fact that it was pulled.
If you look at how handsome he is,
I know.
He's a good-looking guy. He was in Manhattan.
Yeah. But Deuce is available, so that's why he's out there. But
I want to ask you about this because you mentioned this earlier, and I'm very curious about this because I find it interesting. You said that before the season that you thought this was going to be Tibbs' coaching season because everything was perfect, things were aligned. Okay, and you talked about that. And I want to talk like in relation to Deuce. Do you feel like for Tibbs, it's a very specific thing where, you have your Derrick Roses who you just trust from day one, right? And are like an RJ Barrett who it didn't matter if you trust him or not. Like he had to start him. Like that was just how it had to be. Do you feel like for Tibbs, it's a type of thing where your first and your second year, you're kind of earning your trust? Like you have to earn. You have to earn. Like you talked about Deuce, and I think Stacy, you just talked about this. Like he's not like Deuce isn't allowed to just take pull-up threes right now.
No,
right? Like
well, now he is, but last year he. But see, you're right. This is Deuce's what second?
Second, yeah.
So you'll start, but to me, it's a sign that like the 8-game winning streak. One of the changes was Derrick Rose was out, Evan Fournier was out, Deuce was in. Okay, and 8 games. There you go. So to me, the Grimes, Deuce, Mitchell Robinson combination is at that time was their best defensive.
And I think
combination.
it's telling that he finally brought Evan Fournier in, but he did not. He barely played him. He made sure that Quickly, Hart, and McBride were all out there next to him. So he said,
Yeah,
if I'm going to play my weakest defender, and
exactly.
Fournier is the weakest defender, but I will say his one strength is Fournier is rarely in the wrong place, right? He's just slow and at this point in his career isn't quick, but he knows what his job is. So he said that I will play him with my elite defenders who know what their job is and can do other things.
Yeah.
Like,
he surrounds him with defense.
But if he's not playing Fournier besides that, that shows a lot of his trust in them. Because I think if he didn't trust them, he would have played Sims, because Sims is someone he trusts more on defense than.
I want to see what happens going forward past this season, because if they keep Quickly, they're not going to keep Brunson, Quickly, and Deuce. Somebody's going to go. So they're going to keep Brunson, obviously, because they just signed him, and he's like family with the Knicks organization. Quickly is the guy, and it's not because of the Knicks. It's because of Quickly. If Quickly decides, I can go to Miami and start and get $100 million, he's gone.
You don't think the Knicks would pay him $100 million?
No.
Wow.
No. I don't know if they could. Well, this is the problem with that.
It's to me that's an RJ question, by the way. I think it's about RJ.
You're going to be dealing with tax implications if you pay him $100 million. So, unless they're pushing for the ECF, if they're pushing for the ECF, then okay, you pay the tax. But if you're just getting out of the first round, you don't want to be dealing with tax problems.
So I think there's a few things here. Obviously, the new CBA was agreed upon this week. Whatever. People are still figuring out the various new.
How much is the cap? Did you see that? Did they say that?
They haven't posted that. I mean, the cap is going to jump in 2 years because that's when the new TV contract rolls in.
Mm-hmm.
And it feels like from the details I'm seeing, I feel like they're expecting a big bump there, just from what, especially with like some of the stuff the players agreed to. I'm like, would you agree to this unless you knew there was going to be a massive cap spike? I don't think so.
Yeah.
So I think that's coming. And where I stand on this Quickly thing is like, one, I think the Knicks would pay him $100 million because they know where the cap is going, and I don't think.
Oh, I agree with that.
I think the $100 million now is not what it was. The other thing that came out is that they will now be allowed to give 5-year extensions that are not maxes. That was an issue in the previous CBA. Where, unless you could give if you didn't give a 5-year max, you couldn't go to a 5th year after that 3rd season. So I think like the fact that it can go 5 years now for Quick is definitely an advantage.
No, and they're the only team that could do that right now. Yeah. So that's true. You're right about that.
Yeah,
you're right about that.
And all I was gonna say is this: is like, I think the Quickly thing becomes more tricky if they believe in RJ and RJ's still here and all those things. And I just think like they still even if they agree to any extension with Quick, they've got a year to play it out. Okay, like that his extension won't kick in until the year before.
Right.
Yeah, and so to me, the way I view it is this: unless they can trade Quickly for some surefire stud guy, like an actual star, true star, wing, whatever, at a position that they don't have a guy at like that, I think they keep him, because one thing we know about this team is they're not interested in taking steps back.
When you say they keep him, are you saying Quickly will agree to stay?
I think Quickly wants to stay. That's what I think. Like, I think Quick wants to be here. I do think that, like,
why?
Just
if he has to be a 6th man for the next, if he's
playing 30 minutes
years.
tonight.
That's the question. I'm on your side, but I'm asking for that reason.
So that's what I think. Like, I think, like, ideally he'd want to start, but like, I think if you win 6th man of the year, you're being recognized for. He's going to win 6th man of the year. Like, that's going to happen. You're going to be you're being recognized as a highly impactful player. I think if you win in New York, I think he flat out he loves New York, and because to me, like, to be in New York, like, look, when you watch him play, right, he's like got this crazy high level of energy sometimes. I just saw a possession today at the start of the second half where he's like didn't like the defensive effort. He starts clapping at everybody on the team, like, come on, let's fucking go here. Let's get into this. But I think he has this type of like spontaneous energy that plays so well at Madison Square Garden. And there is a connection between him and the fans. Like, You're not going to convince me otherwise. Like, I do think that's a real thing, and I think that matters. For what
No,
it's
I
worth.
think
Like,
I agree
yeah.
with everything you just
Yeah.
said. Like, he loves being in New York. He can obviously play in the Garden in front of his fans. And he loves his teammates. He gets along. Him and Tibbs are, that's Tibbs' grandson. I mean, they're really tight.
Yeah.
But I don't want to discount. Miami has a glaring need for a point guard to me. I think.
But Miami would have to give us something. Like they can't.
They have Tyler Hero. Isn't he better than Quickly?
Tyler Hero is.
Well, I don't know what they'd give us, but
Yeah.
I just
I
don't
agree
put
with
anything-
you.
I don't put anything past Pat Riley. That's all I'm saying. I mean, I didn't think he was going to get LeBron, Bosh, and D-Wade all in the same team, and he got them to take
And Mario Chalmers. Come on, you forgot.
And Mike Miller.
Mario Chalmers is
I
never
mean,
scared of LeBron.
I'm
Come on,
just
that's-
saying
that
he
must
has
be
the
the greatest
ability to
player
put
ever.
stuff together. And then it's obvious to me also that Washington Wizards need a point guard. They don't have a point guard. And so if they're going to invest, I can't believe they're going to actually throw a lot of money at Kuzma and KP. But if they do that, they're going to need a point guard. He's from the DMV. So I'm not saying he wouldn't want to leave New York. I'm just saying I wouldn't discount that if he's looking at, and like you said, let's say 100 million obviously is not like what 100 million was 5 years ago.
Right.
Let's say
This
like
isn't
the
like
100
giving Allen Houston $100 million.
Right. Let's say that the 100 million today is probably 80 million 5 years ago. So that means then the new contract for a guy making 100 is like 130, right? So if that's the case, suppose somebody offers him that. Will the Knicks match that? I don't know. That's what I'm saying. I don't know. I'm not saying for sure.
I think it's very important for the Knicks to lock this man up this summer. I'll say
I
that.
think
Like,
I will agree with that.
yeah. Like
I
I
will
just
agree with
think,
that.
and I mean this truthfully, and I am like a huge Quickly stan. So if people want to accuse me of just loving him too much, that's fine. I think when you talk like not just us, right, but like fans of the NBA in general, and you hear about this all the time, culture. Like it's this term everybody throws around. Culture is a guy like Emmanuel Quickly, like a guy who you drafted 25th overall, who has totally outperformed his draft slot, who has played on ball, who has played off ball, who has come off the bench, who has been a good soldier, who plays super hard all the time, who has not let his head hang even when he was not the favored son in the rotation. Like, that's what it is, guys. Like, that's like, you know what, Jalen, you know what Quickly is right now? That is what Jalen Brunson went through in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and guess what happened? They didn't appreciate what they had.
That's right.
He walked, and look at these guys now. And I'm not saying it's just Jalen Brunson, but building a franchise, building a team, building a competitive roster, you have to reward the guys like that. You have to reward those guys, and you have to retain those guys. Now, does that mean you keep them forever and ever and ever? No. But like in this moment in time, with where you are in your team building, in your team building situation, with where you are as a franchise, with what you've achieved this season, I think it's super fucking important to keep him in the fold.
But
I completely agree with you. It's just going to be interesting to see how high that contract's going to be.
And to Raw Hebrew's point, I think, this is something I don't think it's publicized as much, but how many players that were sixth man at age 23 winning sixth man of the year that didn't have a starting role in the near future stayed with the team? The two that, like, Iguodala is a lot older. But he signed on with the Warriors for long because they made it financially worth his while. The main example I think of is a player that, sorry guys, I know you like him. I know you like Quickly. I know everybody likes Quickly. I know that he even has, you could give him a nickname that would be the same as this player. I do not think that Emmanuel Quickly is Emmanuel Ginobili yet, but he's the guy I can think of that stayed his own whole, like he could have tried to be Harden somewhere. I think so. I don't think that's crazy.
No, when you're winning championships, it's like
so
you mentioned.
Is that what it? So if the Knicks made a run, would that convince Quickly?
Yes.
Okay, but the question. Yes. But is there precedent for a guy on a team like this that's up and coming, that's building, that has guys? By the way, we've talked about this. Quickly was the only player to post a positive net rating with Randle. I think Randle helps him too, because on some of the possessions where Quickly doesn't get quite to his spot, Randle is good at being an outlet. And I think he's good at playing with Brunson too. So this team helps him as well. He's putting up numbers. He's getting notoriety on this team. Is there a precedent for a guy in this situation who stayed with the team And yeah, because the thing is, if Quickly wants to start somewhere and he tells the Knicks, "Fuck off, get me out of here," like he has that ability. But is there a precedent of a guy that could have done that stayed? That
it
bodes
depends.
well?
I would say this. I would say if you look at guys like very specific, you look at the Celtics team, Jaylen Brown and Marcus Smart were not like always given headline status. They were not always starters. I mean, Marcus Smart, how many point guards did they bring in? They brought in Kyrie Irving. They brought in Isaiah Thomas. They brought in Kemba Walker. Like
Peyton Pritchard, the guy that everyone said, who was it that said we missed out on Peyton Pritchard and Tyrell Terry?
yeah. It's
Somebody said that.
Yeah, somebody said that.
On draft night, I will admit, I love Emmanuel Quickly. I was like, we might have just stayed at we might have just taken him at 33. I did the pod with Shwin. Shwin was like the one guy that was like, look, it's the 25th pick. And like, this is a guy with the work ethic and all that. And I had written the most glowing profile of him. So shame on me for like thinking.
Actually, the two guys I wanted in that draft, I wanted Bane.
Yeah, that was the one.
I wanted him, and then I wanted Maxey. If we were going to pick a Kentucky guy, I wanted Maxey. But I was a little disappointed. I was a little disappointed, but Quickly won me over, man. He's something else, man. So
there's just like, I just think like, again, like being a fan of a team to me has to mean more than just like, oh, I want, like, I'm sorry, like, I'm really not interested in like, who's the star we can get? What star? I'm like,
no, yeah,
right. I like this team. I like the connection I feel with the guys on this team.
Yep.
And like, I like to see these guys that we've developed and drafted. Because when was the last time we drafted and developed anybody? Like, it just hasn't happened. And it's like, I'm sorry, like I enjoyed this part of being a fan. And if that makes me
forget Quickly, right?
It's all these guys.
Even RJ Barrett, we've criticized RJ Barrett a lot. He has not been a disaster at all. Like, like we gave him a good contract. Like, it's not a bad contract. And like, yeah, he's probably not lived up to the expectations of the third pick quite that well, considering one of the third picks in history. If you do an average, the greatest player ever was a third pick. And then Luka is also third pick, and you have other guys like that. But he's not like they've done. And then, I mean, look at all the guys. Quickly, steal. Grimes, steal. Mitchell Robinson, steal. Deuce, I would argue, is a steal.
Steal, yep.
Jericho Sims at 58 to get
steal.
If you look at 50, or like
you get a guy who can play actual NBA minutes.
You get a guy who's played a game, played an NBA game.
Pick, man. Yeah.
Look at how many guys. If you look at these drafts and how many of them have like never participated in a game, it's like half the picks after pick 40. Yeah, so like to play in a game, let alone play this, and like he's like a below average start like rotation player, but a solid rotation player, maybe average. I don't know. And then you have like so like that's unprecedented in Knicks history in recent memory, is sure. Like I think that going back a long time, and but I want to ask you this, Raw Hebrew, because this is something Shwin has mentioned this a lot. Whenever I bring up even a guy like Jaylen Brown, I think Shwin has often said, RJ Barrett, not cutting it this year. So my take is if we had a Jaylen Brown to this team and RJ Barrett, this is not a knock on Barrett, but I think that upgrade would put this team over the top.
Yeah. Now the thing is about RJ.
Sorry, I just want to finish. But like, if you're bought into this whole thing that like this team's depth and the combination they have, does that make you think that like the rule of thumb is you need an MVP type player to win? Like historically, you need one guy like that. And I'm wondering, can this team like continue to make Josh Hart type moves to get there? Do you think that's possible?
That's the 2004 Detroit Pistons.
Yeah, that's the one team.
Yeah, and I think we're very much like them. From coach on down, Larry Brown had not won anything in the pros. He had come to the finals once with Allen Iverson and lost, 4-1, I think, to the Lakers. He always had winning teams, but they never really advanced people were given the same label they're giving Tibbs. And all of a sudden, they get this team with Rasheed, with, defensive stopper at the 5.
The Brunson Billups parallel is real.
Yeah, no, and then all of a sudden, here they are. So. Yeah.
And they had a lot of players I was always a huge Rasheed Wallace. I think he was ahead of his time.
Oh, I love Rasheed, man.
I mean, imagine if you put Rasheed Wallace on the Warriors in the Draymond role.
Oh, yeah.
He would have been fucking insane. I think that was a guy.
Sheed was amazing.
Yeah.
Like but he was a guy with a lot of talent who was willing to adapt to a smaller role. I think guy like Richard Hamilton, you put him in the Clay role today. I think he would have. His last year, he just started shooting threes and he shot 48% from three. Like that was a guy that specialized mid range at that time. He could have easily adapted. So they had a lot of guys that were willing to adapt to smaller roles, and I think that also quickly could be a starting guard. He could be, that kind of a player. If he's willing to adapt to that, right? If you have a guy like RJ, who I think has done a lot of good things, if you convert RJ's 25 and 3, and I'm it's counting stats, but if that 25 and 3 becomes 16, 6 and 2, or sorry, 16, 6 and 6, right? So he commits himself a little bit more in defense, and some of those shots that he's taking in the mid range that are probably not his best game. If he kicks out, he's getting 6 assists a game. I think that's very much on the table. You have these guys adapt to more role player things that are really probably maybe not stars, but like really good players. Tayshaun was another guy. I think Tayshaun could have had a much more of a, maybe not a star, but Tayshaun could have been like a 20-point per game.
He could have put a number somewhere,
but he didn't. He focused on, and like Tayshaun Prince is not going to go down in the annals of NBA history as like what his talent maybe suggested. You have a lot of those guys. I think to your point, that's kind of the ingredients you need. They have those guys who are willing to buy into it now. Will they continue? I guess.
Well, I would say this. I think you see some of the more punitive incentives now built into the new CBA. I think these all-in star trade stuff, I've been against them for a while now. I just think they're bad moves. Like, I just don't think guys are worth it. Like, they're just not. I'm sorry. Like, as good as Donovan Mitchell is, like, do you honestly feel he's a top 10 player in the NBA?
I don't. This year.
But that's different. Like Julius Randle was a top 10 player in the NBA in 2020, 2021. Do you actually think he was a top 10 player? Like, no. It's not.
I think the difference to me, like,
I agree.
You don't have to go on a tangent. The difference is Donovan Mitchell can do that independent of his teammates.
Maybe, but like, what great
Julius
success?
Randle has been playing like that.
Okay, but is Donovan? Do you actually think, if you were like gun to your head, tell me you need to pick, rank from 1 to 10, the 10 guys you want if you need to win a game tomorrow? Is Donovan Mitchell in that top 10? He's no shot in my top 10.
But that's because some of those guys are guys like Steph, LeBron.
But that's the point. That's the league. That's the league. The league is always going to have.
Play 50 games a year.
The league is, but
you're not making that decision on one game. That's the point, right? You're making that decision on the
season. But if I'm going all in for a guy, I need to know it's a guy that is of that caliber. But you're talking about, like, you see all in trades. Minnesota made an all in trade for Rudy Gobert.
That was stupid. Oh my God! I was like,
what
are you doing?
Right. But it's like every trade now you see, right? For any of these guys, it doesn't matter if it can be James Harden, who might be worth that actually, or it can be Rudy Gobert, or it can be somebody in between, like Donovan Mitchell. It's not. Look at the success rate of these trades. They're not good, and what they do is
Brooklyn is the biggest kind of nail. That was the perfect, and they created kind of what we have now. Right? They had Dinwiddie was there quickly, I guess.
They didn't ever. They could have created it. They just didn't take their time. I
think just like, I'll let you finish. What I'm going to add is like, we were talking with Schmelk over the summer, and like his point was that like with a guy like Mitchell, everything has to be on the table. It's not a question of fair value.
Why? But that's bullshit. I don't understand that.
I'm agreeing with you. What I'm saying is, if that is the value of these stars, then it's not worth it, because then you're valuing Mitchell. You might as well value him the same way you would value LeBron, or you value.
Well, if you're dealing with Danny Ainge, he does.
Right.
But this is all these stars. That it happened with Gobert. It happened with it. Probably like there was a trade today that somebody sent about Bam, where it was 2 first-round picks.
Oh my God, Mitchell, I did see that.
It was 2 first-round picks: Mitchell Robinson and Obi Toppin. And I think Derrick Rose to make the salary.
I was like, no, they made it was 3 guys. I think they put Quickly in there.
No, they did not put Quickly in there. That's why I was like, on a value basis, like you get Bam for 2 first-round picks. I don't like the fit with Julius Randle, but like the point I'm making is that like, I think Miami would be like, why would Miami do that? It's not a great trade for the Knicks. First of all, I agree with you on that, but it's also like Miami would never do that. Because a star is always more valuable to the team they're on.
But this is so. My point of this, though, is that like
I'm saying that part of the reason why stars are overvalued is because they're always more valuable to the team they're on.
No, I think stars are overvalued now for reasons that have nothing to do with that. I think stars are overvalued now because people lack patience. That's fundamentally what I believe.
But don't you
Like-
think the market would correct for that eventually? Without rules?
Why would it? Why would it? Because nobody has patience. Like,
well, it depends. It depends. If the star is there's two things here, right? You're dealing with how much money does the star bring to the team? That's important for the owner. Like
not so much for us.
Yeah, but for the owner. So how much money is this guy going to bring to the team?
But for Minnesota, it's important. Yeah.
Yeah. For Minnesota,
Rudy Gobert, just dry. People are just dying.
Well, they buy those tickets, man. Buy those
This is
tickets.
the only way to. Well,
The tickets went from $5 to $10 now. Oh my god.
That's 100% increase, guys.
Yeah. But whatever makes you sleep at night. No, I'm just saying. But I would say that, or they're going to win you a championship.
Right.
Okay,
Right,
so
and-
either one of those things. So if they like the Kyrie, I hated the Kyrie Durant thing for a lot of reasons.
Yeah.
But one of them is that those two guys won chips because of who they joined. It was like before LeBron came to Cleveland, Kyrie was getting 40 and they were winning 20 games in a year.
I think they actually got worse, like from his third year to his fourth year.
Yeah. So I was like, they weren't winning anything.
Yeah.
And so LeBron comes and he basically manages that team to put it together and they win a championship. And even that, he had to do superhuman stuff for them to beat Golden State.
But Kyrie did too, right? Kyrie.
Right,
was,
I'm saying, but
Kyrie
by
is
himself,
a great. Yeah, Kyrie is a great talent. Like one of the great talents.
I rank
there's a
Kyrie
difference
like
between
one
there's
of the
a
best
difference
finishers
between,
ever.
Yeah, but there's a difference between you're a great individual player versus you elevate your team.
Right.
And Kyrie is consistently never. If anything, you can argue that he's taken away from a lot of teams.
Yeah, he's never brought his team to that next level.
Yeah, he's never the guy that elevates your team.
Actually, they brought him to Boston to do that.
Yeah. And they got worse. They literally got they improved.
Do you think he would have been if he wasn't a head case?
But he is.
I don't know. I'm just saying.
Some guys aren't head cases. Devin Booker.
All I'm saying is that if you're going to tell me like if Kawhi Leonard is available, or
that's
or or Giannis, or you talk to me about a guy that's taking his team to the chip, and okay, we could do that, but we got to talk about the compensation. But yes, we'll do that. But other than that, building the way the Knicks are building, that's what you want to do.
And even Kawhi Leonard, it's worth mentioning, he demanded that he came with Paul George. I'm not going to call that a failure on the Nets level, but it hasn't panned out the way they would. They gave up a guy who's now maybe. I mean, you would say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is one of the top 10 players. They gave him up in that trade, right?
He's in the conversation.
But
sure.
I think the follow up, and I agree with you that these all-in-one star trades don't seem to work. Here's the thing: I think besides the Pistons, you would agree. I think that every team that's won has had one of those guys. At least,
I think the league is different now. Like,
do you think you can win without an MVP player?
I think you need to have somebody who's in the conversation. I don't think you need to have.
I think you need a top 10 player. You need a top 10 guy.
You need somebody who's in that conversation. I don't think they necessarily need to be like Giannis, but I do think you need somebody who's at least gets a pity vote. Right? Yeah, he's like okay.
Well, Julius Randle might.
Yeah, or somebody that's in the MVP conversation. Somebody like Embiid. You can win with
that. The point is the point I'm making is this.
Booker. I think those guys are.
Yeah.
So you guys mentioned Giannis. You mentioned Kawhi. Those guys are not really ever in trades rumors.
Right? No, they decide where they want to go.
Yeah, but the point is it seems like the guys who are in these all-in-one trade rumors are guys. It's not even Booker. Like it seems absurd to think that the Suns would want to trade Booker. And he's at the bottom of that tier, I think.
Well,
so the question is, without it's either this: you accept the fact that you need an MVP player, and then you need to make an all-in-one trade, or the other I think is maybe you can win without it. I think one of those has to be true. Otherwise, I don't know that you can win it.
I think one you can win without it. The Spurs didn't have an MVP. The Spurs didn't have an MVP player when they won in 2014.
They had one who became one immediately.
Right, but he wasn't at that time.
They had another former MVP who.
Okay, a former MVP. Duncan was not an MVP that year, dude.
Tony Parker was really fucking good.
He wasn't an MVP.
But when Duncan,
you were just saying that. You just said you have to have one, and then I gave you an example of a team that didn't have it, and then you're giving me all these. Well, Kawhi became one. Well, Duncan was one. Well, Parker might have. They weren't. So they won one right there that year. I just gave you an example. Any of those
things apply to
I gave you an example. You don't like the example now.
No, I brought up that example. the point I'm making.
So how is that? That's the
No,
point.
but wait.
It's hard. It's hard. It's not the most common way to do it.
No, I'm
But
just
like,
saying. Look,
but to me, like,
So that's
yeah,
what I
you
point. So
generally
so is your
hold
point
on.
that- is your point that
Let me
you
finish.
can win
Can I
without
finish?
one?
Am I allowed to
Pick
finish?
one.
Can I finish?
I'm saying pick one.
You're
Like,
not
and
even
you-
letting me finish. So
Because
how can I
that's
pick?
what I asked you was like
Are
You're
you
not
guys-
letting
one.
Stacey.
you
You're
guys
not
like-
letting me. Stacey,
you
you have
guys
to
are
let
like-
me
you guys are like
finish a
brothers.
thought.
You guys are
Stacey,
brothers,
you gotta let me
right?
finish a thought. That's how
You
it
guys
works.
are brothers, right? Because you guys.
No,
fight
we're
like
just
that.
we're both.
You got to be
Indian.
brothers.
No, look, like here's the thing, right? I agree. The larger sample of the NBA, you are right. You need an MVP caliber player to be in that conversation. But I don't think the league now is the same as the league. Like, look at the talent level in the league.
That's a good answer.
Right.
I want that to be the answer, and I'm starting to believe it is.
Right.
That was my question. The question is like, if you're rejecting all these star trades, is it because deep down you think that we can can we make Josh Hart type moves from this team to get there? I'm not saying we can't. I'm saying that I think you need to believe that you can, though, to reject a lot of these trades.
I think every trade needs to be judged on its own individual merit. And like a reason to make an all-in trade can't be, well, we need to get a star or we need to upgrade. I'm just giving an example. Jaylen Brown is somebody who has.
And I've always agreed with that.
Right.
And that's why I wasn't give everything up for Donovan Mitchell.
Right.
My point is that I think we need to have an answer. The Knicks have to have a belief one way or the other if they need to do that.
Right,
because I think you've said that you wouldn't trade for Joel Embiid, which like that to me is if you're not going to trade for Joel Embiid, you're firmly committed to the idea that we can do it this way. We can do it.
I would not trade if you told me we had to give up RJ Barrett, Obi Toppin, and 2 first-round picks for Joel Embiid. Sure, go for it. But that's never going to be the trade. The trade for Joel
all
Embiid,
the first-round picks.
Right. The trade is going to be all your first-round picks. Emmanuel Quickley, Grimes, fucking somebody else, a contract to match it. You're going to have to give up all of your flexibility. So when you make that trade, you have to believe, and you have.
And my position is that there isn't a star trade out there. That's my
right.
If Joel Embiid isn't the guy, I don't think there is one.
Right, but no,
Giannis isn't coming available.
Okay, but my position is that regardless of what we think or who it is or whatever, all these trades have to be judged on their own individual merit. So when I hear stuff like the Donovan Mitchell thing to me was insane this summer because I think Donovan Mitchell's really good. I don't think people were talking about him like he's this generational talent who if the Knicks don't get. Oh my God! The Knicks didn't do it again. They didn't get the star, and I was like,
there were people saying that. There were people saying that.
Yeah,
I mean, Stephen A is still saying if you lose, that's the most ridiculous thing, by the way. He's like, if we lose to Donovan Mitchell, then the whole season was a failure because if you add him to even Richard Jefferson said, imagine Donovan Mitchell on this team. Well, he wouldn't be on this team.
He wouldn't be.
You wouldn't have
team.
Quickly.
Right.
You wouldn't have as much as we ripped on RJ Barrett. He's been.
You wouldn't have RJ. You wouldn't have Quickly.
You wouldn't have Grimes.
They would have
had to give up Grimes. They got Larry fucking Markkinen. He's been terrific.
Yep.
Plus Walker Kessler is a good. They would have had to give up everything.
And you would have had to give up all your pick flexibility.
So it wouldn't be the same team. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's my point though. Is I think would somebody like Jaylen Brown, would he improve this team in some scenario X? Yes, I do think he would. Is that scenario a scenario that's likely to occur? Probably not. Because it seems like now anytime anybody who's a star or a borderline star or a proverbial star is on the market, it's yep, give us everything.
Do you think he's an expiring contract?
Well, I think Jaylen Brown's a bit different only because
maybe.
I mean, he is not the superstar.
No, he's not.
He's a star. But and then we're talking about RJ Barrett. I wanted to go back to what Shwinny you brought up a while ago on this is that with RJ. So RJ's everybody is not everybody, but a lot of people are looking at RJ because he's the third pick and they're comparing him to guys like Luka or guys like Ja Morant. And I feel like that's not proper to do because it's like I said, I have 4 children and they all didn't learn to walk at the same time. Everybody, one took a year, one took 9 months. They all were different. One, thought she's never going to walk. Maybe something's wrong with her. And then all of a sudden, one day she just stood up and started walking, just like that. Just stood up and started walking. And so that's like with players, they don't develop at the same speed. I think RJ is going to start. You're going to start to see the things we want to see from him when he's 24. Right now he's 22. So what I'm looking at with regard to, say, a Jaylen Brown is you're going to have RJ Barrett at 24 in 2 years, or with Jaylen Brown, you get him now. And it depends on what you want. Like you mentioned, not being patient. If Jaylen Brown for RJ Barrett, like if you just switch those positions and Brown is in Barrett's position, we got the same team. Does Jaylen Brown get us to that next level? If he does, that's what you want to look at. If he doesn't, and you want to wait 2 years, which you can, and say, okay, we think RJ will be there in 2 years. We drafted him. He's in our system. Let's wait. Okay, you could do that too. But that's the dynamic you're talking about, in my view. You're talking about whether you want to wait now or say, no, we're not waiting. This is available now, and we can get him now. Let's do it.
Yeah, and I think there's 2 questions I think that brings up. One, who is the worst player the Knicks could add to this team? And I think like the question with Jaylen Brown, like why I'm high on it is I think you can keep quickly. I think you can keep Grimes.
Yeah,
if you centered RJ and Obi as your main targets or your main comp in that gave up a bunch of picks, and you added and you essentially replaced Jaylen Brown. You replace RJ with Jaylen Brown.
Yep.
You find, Trey Lyles or someone like that to replace Obi as the backup 4. Does that put this team over the top? Maybe it doesn't. I don't know.
I don't know. And that's the thing. But that's the question, though, isn't it, Stacey? That's the question.
So,
and who's
I would
the
say
worst?
this.
So I think there's 2 questions. Sorry, Shwin, so there's 2 things. One, is Jaylen Brown the worst possible player you could do a trade? Is that the question? Or is it like, are there a number of Josh Hart type trades you add? I don't know that. I don't think Norm Powell is the right answer, but I'm going to say like a guy like Norm Powell, or if you add another like something like a Jaden McDaniels or Jalen McDaniels, honestly, like I really like his game. If you keep making those kind of moves, are those 2 pathways there, or
I think you have to incrementally improve your team? Like this is kind of what my issue is with these all-in trades. It's like you're trying to go from I'm poor to I'm obnoxiously rich. In one step. Yeah. And I think the way the Knicks are approaching it is the right way. Is Josh Hart 100% going to be on the final contending version of
Honestly,
the Knicks?
I think he could be, but
he could be, but I don't know that. I don't know if Emmanuel quickly will. I don't know if RJ
if you
Barrett
had
will.
to make one player add, is Jaylen Brown that guy? Does it need to be better than him? If you're only losing Obi and RJ, could it be OG Anunoby? Could it be?
Okay, but my point is if you get Jaylen Brown, let's say Jaylen Brown, you can get him for whatever the hell it was, right? 2 first-round picks, RJ Barrett. Fine, go do that. And then maybe Jaylen Brown is a better conduit to get the superstar that you ultimately need to get. Like there are and that doesn't need to just happen at the start. Like it could be like, you got Josh Hart.
But you don't
right?
think you could just win with Jaylen Brown on this team?
I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I don't really.
I think they'd be the second best team in the East.
I think they'd be really good.
I think they'd be really good because Jaylen Brown, like I said, I'm not knocking RJ, but I'm saying Jaylen Brown is RJ in 2 or 3 seasons. Jaylen Brown is that now, and so and he's going.
I think he's a much better shooter than RJ will ever be.
I mean, right? But this is RJ. We're talking about RJ at 22. If RJ was 25, you might say they're even at that time. But right now, we could get RJ at 25 right now in the form of Jaylen Brown. Now, the thing is that I don't think we have to pay a king's ransom because he's becoming an unrestricted free agent
in a year, right?
Yeah. So they would have, in order to not get nothing for him. It's not like they got to take anything, but you got to give them an offer. But it's not going to be like I got to clean my cupboards offer to get this guy. It's not going to be like
it's just like and I hope you're right because like it's just been so weird to me to see how the league has moved since in the last 3 or 4 years. Where now it's like literally any time one of these guys moves, it feels like it's everything. It's everything. And like I agree. Like if the Celtics have a feeling Jaylen Brown is, he's giving them all kinds of signs like I'm not going to resign. I'm not going to resign.
Right.
Maybe there's a deal there to be made.
I mean, do you think it could even get to the point where he walks for nothing?
If it's possible.
I don't think who is it? Brad Stevens in the front office? He get fired.
Yeah.
He'd have to make a move before that. He definitely would.
Yeah,
but even that would be at a discount, and maybe that would be a team like Toronto rented Kawhi. and he walked for nothing, and Toronto was like, okay.
Right. So it's like that's kind of where I'm at with it, where it's like if you told me we can get him for a Kawhi price, then yeah, you should definitely do that trade. But like the recent NBA history, that value for stars has been so fleeting.
Inflated. Do you think this is due for a correction, maybe?
I think
Especially
so.
when you have guys in their last, like, because a lot of the trades have been guys with multiple years left in their contract. Donovan Mitchell had 3 years left.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's a different scenario when you got an expiring deal. They're not going to get a king's ransom for him. So it's got to be. They're going to be something more reasonable.
Yeah,
it just always depends to me because like we might, and I agree with you. Like it shouldn't cost a king's ransom, but all it takes is one team, right? It's all like the Pelicans are sitting there. They are on the edge of the plan. We'll see whether they make the actual playoffs or whatever it is. They've got all these picks still, right? Like they have all the stuff. There's kind of probably some desire to push ahead and compete, especially with the shape of the Western Conference. Right? The Western Conference is not like it's not some murderer's row.
Yeah,
right
but
now.
he'd have to agree to re-sign with them.
Right. But if you're them, maybe you look at that and you're like, well, we just believe that if we pay the price to get this guy and whatever, he'll stay. And like Orlando is a team that I think is interesting for not just for Jaylen Brown, but a lot of players because it's
I mean they're going to be good, but they need a couple of more seasons. But if I'm Jaylen Brown, I don't want to step backwards. I want to step into a situation where I'm the final piece.
And I guess it just depends to me because to me, when I read some of the stuff he said, it feels like he thinks he can be the man somewhere. Maybe I'm misinterpreting the things he said, but it feels like he
wants to leave.
I mean, I really don't understand. I don't understand what is it. There is something there that he is not liking Boston for some reason.
Yeah, and they have a history of not treating their players well. They have organizational turmoil. They apparently have. He's not the first player to suggest that the fans are not great, specifically to black players.
That's been going on for like 60 years, literally.
Right.
Yeah.
But
do you know somebody came into Bill Russell's house and crapped in his bed?
Yeah. 11 rings, and that's what he get, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
I think.
I mean, my point is like, where have you heard that? But like, have you heard that? Like, it's also the fact that he has to share the spotlight with Tatum or something like that.
I mean, I
don't know. That's weird, isn't it? Though.
I think one of the things he's taught, like, he did not like that he was in those Kevin Durant trade rumors, and I know that they talked to him, and he mentioned it. Like, he said that they did talk to me, and like, squared it away and everything. Like, they explained, we're fine, we're moving on, you're our guy now. And they squashed up at this trade deadline when Kevin Durant was again in the trade market. Apparently they went to him and they're like, you're not going anywhere. We're not trading you. Like, you're a guy, but there are some hurt feelings there. And I think that's part of it. I don't know if he I don't know if he wants to be the guy or not, but if you he's just said so much stuff recently where you're like, well, you're not happy. You're not 100% happy.
Right. He's not happy. That's right.
So there's something there. So all we can do is speculate. But like, I don't know. And it's not just Jaylen Brown.
Though. If I'm Boston and you're going to give me a RJ Barrett, my new starting 2 guard, and Obi Toppin, my new starting 4, to pair with Jason Tatum and Marcus Smart, that's not a bad situation. Especially if you can give me a couple of picks with it. I'm not going to be. I wouldn't be crying.
If you know he's leaving.
Yeah, if you know he's leaving anyway, he's not happy, and you're getting that. I wouldn't be. That's not a bad situation.
I think what I'm really asking here is this, right? Like, I think this is the best constructed Knicks team I've seen. It's a better constructed Knicks team than 2012. It's the best constructed.
Oh,
Knicks.
yeah.
So it's not just the talent; it's how well they fit together. And my question is this: like, how far can you get with that if you don't have? And like, should we lean it? Because I think like my answer is like I want to. I really have. Like, I am a fan. I like these players. I want to see Emmanuel quickly retire a Knick. I want to see him Grimes retire a Knick. I want to see RJ Barrett retire a Knick. I want to see Mitch retire a Knick. How far can you get using this baseline? Can you turn that into a championship team? That's like kind of what I'm trying to. That's the main question in my mind right now. Beyond, can we beat the Cavs in this series?
But like, well, how long are you willing to wait? Because
that's the question. Because it's like,
I think they can, but
I think.
But then you're asking, can quickly turn into a star, or Barrett to turn into a star? I think it's worth asking about Grimes too. Actually, at this point,
I think Grimes can. I'm really high on Grimes. I think he can.
So that would be the other thing. Or you're saying that even if these guys remain role players, and we just add more Josh Harts to the mix, we can do that. Those are the two paths to like a not.
Well, you're kind of
not
limited
all
when you say adding Josh Hart. There's only 9 positions in
Yeah,
its
that's true.
rotation, so you're limited. But I think Grimes has the potential to turn into an all-star, and I'm really looking at RJ by faith and believing that he could get better. But I think quickly can get
you have
that
to
good.
you have to believe RJ is not like this season to me is like
Not
hopefully,
indicative. Yeah.
it's one of those guys have seasons like this. Like I know it sucks in the moment, and honestly, in the moment when I talk about it like this, I feel like I think about it. I'm like, am I just coping? Am I coping with this right now? Because I'm like, I don't think I don't think this is indicative of what he actually is. It's a concerning season, no doubt about it.
Mhm.
But like I tend to agree with you. But yeah, like I think Grimes. We mentioned this. We talked about this like probably during the All-Star break, where one of the things I mentioned was like, last year in 2020, 2021, or sorry, 2021, 2022, one of the bright spots after the All-Star break was quickly taking what I thought was like a very clear leap. I was like, this is not just a hot streak. This looks like a guy who is taking a step in his career. And what I was saying was that like Grimes is at a very interesting point where he had struggled a little bit. He had been going through some shit. He wasn't playing at the level he was when he first got inserted into the rotation. He was kind of hesitant to pull the trigger on shots at times. He wasn't getting a lot of shots up and all kinds of things. But I was like, he's at a point where like, this is a point where you often see young players take a step. End of the second year of their career. They're kind of acclimated to the league now. And I think like what we're seeing
every time Grimes shoots now, by the way, and he's
it's going in, right?
If he's not open. That's how I feel.
But
it's
like
mostly been proven right.
And it's like, but I think this last 5-6 games, it's not just that he's shooting well. You're seeing him play with way more confidence off the bounce.
Yep.
Like he is like there was, who was it we were playing? Might have been
Miami.
It was Miami when they so like Grimes has become the guy that teams often hide their worst defender on. And so they were hiding Duncan Robinson.
It's like Bullock in 20. Yeah.
Right. And so he was Duncan Robinson was hiding on him in the third quarter at one point. And at one point, Grimes was just like, he caught a pass off of like a kick out. And it wasn't like the defense was scrambling. Like Robinson was right there. And he kind of was like thinking about swinging it. And then he was like, fuck this. Like Duncan Robinson, like I'm going to take this guy. And he drove by him and he drew a foul and he got to the free throw line. But my point is like, that play right there is a play he was not making a month ago. And you're seeing more and more of those little plays, those little instances of him having the confidence. Like, I don't mind some of the bullshit heat check threes he takes because it's like you need to ultimately become to become a star. You've got to have the confidence to just take that shit and like
you gotta have
the
balls to throw that up, man. And he does. So, but you know what though? He's only in his second year. He's only 22.
Yeah.
I mean, damn. I'm high on him, man. Yeah. I think he's gonna be something else. And
I think this front office has drafted like unbelievably well.
Oh yeah,
unbelievably well. And
Walt Perrin was the most important part of that Leon Rose did in that front office, hiring Walt Perrin, which built Utah. But
and I mean, if you, I would imagine Perrin, because he's a scouting guy, wasn't involved in the trade discussion for the summer. I mean, he probably had to sign off on Brunson and Hartenstein from a scouting standpoint, but the guy that I think Shwin, you said this, or maybe I'm misquoting, but I think it had been said that Jalen Williams was high on their priority list. If they had taken
I know they liked him. I know they liked him. I don't know like what that means. I don't know if that means like there was some huge battle on draft night where Walt Perrin's like, no, but it stands
to reason that if they stayed there, like there's a good chance he would have been the pick. Which I don't know that would have. I'm also saying that, like, based on how they behaved this year and how much like, would Jalen Williams start here over Grimes? I think Jalen Williams probably has a higher ceiling.
Jalen Williams would be a rookie, right?
Yeah, he's a rookie, and like Grimes is better at the things they need.
Thibodeau's your coach, right?
Yeah.
No, seriously, you really think he would play? No, I don't think so.
Well,
I think he might play.
Grimes better. Grimes also has the skill set to fit in, right? So Williams is a creator where you have Brunson.
No, Williams has been awesome, but he wouldn't play that much. He'd probably play like 12 minutes a game.
He'd get the deuce role.
Yeah.
Jinx, right?
Yeah.
But I guess like that is what also gives me the hesitation So like I am with you. I do not want these all-in-one stars. Even the Bam trade, which I think on a value standpoint was a win for the Knicks, I wouldn't do.
That bothered my stomach. I didn't even like it. I was like, no.
But I think that's partly for me. That was because the fit with Randle, but it's also like I would like to see like what can this team do? Like can they, because they've improved so much. But you have to kind of believe that either like the guy you can get to like put you over the top is someone, or the two guys that can get you over the top are available without sacrificing this core, or I think that's what you have to believe, and I'm starting to believe it. But like, because like I can't find holes in this roster really. Like,
let's see what happens in the playoffs. Let's see what happens if they win against Cleveland. Everything's going to change.
If they beat Cleveland,
they have to play Milwaukee, which is a shitty fucking matchup.
Yeah, they'll probably lose there. But I'm saying if they beat Cleveland, I'm telling you right now, everything's going to change.
And I think to your point, like, so if they beat Cleveland, right, and let's say like I think they would get beat by pretty badly by Milwaukee. Let's say that's a 5-game gentleman sweep, right? Like,
think so?
but I just think Giannis is the one guy for us, like in this.
Well,
Yeah.
They have an elite defender at power forward, which happens to be our top scorer's position.
And they can go
an elite defender at point guard, who is our other top scorer's position, right?
Yeah.
So
they've been throwing somebody else on Brunson when they played, though. Who did
Javon Carter?
Carter.
He's like their Deuce, but he's what I want Deuce to be.
He's from West Virginia. He's from West Virginia.
It's the same, the Bob Huggins archetype.
Yeah.
But like I'm with you where I think it changes, right? Because even so, like, you beat Cleveland, I don't think anybody's going to be upset. Like Stephen A. Smith will probably cry if they lose to Milwaukee.
Yeah.
But like normal fans and general NBA people will be like, "That's a great season the Knicks just had. Awesome season."
Yeah.
But
and they would say that, by the way, if we lose to Cleveland. I think any sane person would say that. Like Cleveland, everyone says they're a good matchup. They're like they've been top 4 in net rating for a long time. Like they're a great team. Like,
but I think if we beat them, quickly resigns quickly.
and
we get him back.
But I think what happens, right, if you beat them and then you lose to Milwaukee is like, and this is the hardest part, I think, of being an executive is like, okay, is there a move available to me to bridge that gap? Or do I just have to accept that, like,
did you say that on purpose? Or? Are there bridges? Is there a bridges?
Are there bridges involved?
No, they're not. Definitely not miles of bridges anyway. But like
we went there.
Yeah. But like is that move available to me? Or, and this is the hardest part, because this is where a lot of front offices fuck up, is they reach,
Brooklyn fucked up.
They reach to because they're like, well, we already made this step, so we have to take the next step right now. We've got to go for it now. And I think you should do that if, like, we talked about a potential Jaylen Brown trade that isn't exorbitant. If that's available, go for it. I'm fine with that. But don't convince yourself that a 5 is an 8.
So what?
You know what I mean? Don't reach. Like, just be okay with where you are, and
stay over that last shot of tequila that puts you over.
Yeah, you don't want to take that last shot.
But what I guess the point is, what is that point for you? Is it giving up quickly? Is it giving up Grimes?
It depends.
Is it giving up more than 2 unprotected? Like, what is that?
It depends on the player that we're talking about.
If we're talking about Jaylen Brown, I'm not putting Grimes in it.
Yeah, I'm not putting Grimes
quickly or Grimes.
Yeah, no. I'm not interested, because to me, you're getting Jaylen Brown very specifically. You're getting Jaylen Brown very specifically to me to upgrade the RJ spot in the rotation.
Yes,
that's the point. So it's like, and it's not. So if I'm all of a sudden now also tossing in a Grimes or a Quickly, then it loses the value.
He's not that kind of star.
Yeah, you're overpaying. Overpaying.
So I just think the Knicks' best bet here is just like, one, play it out, and they did not pull the trigger on the Mitchell trade. I think that needs to be said. Like, there was all kinds of smoke around it. They obviously were very interested in Donovan Mitchell. I don't think anybody can deny that. They were very interested in him. But they ultimately determined this is not worth it. And
can I ask you a question? Like, if it was just RJ and 3 picks, but you got to keep Quickly, you keep Grimes.
Oh, I already did it.
In hindsight, so you would do it. In
hindsight?
Yeah.
In hindsight, yeah, I would have done it.
I already did that. Yeah.
Yeah.
If it's just RJ and 3 picks, Oh hell yeah!
And like
Yeah.
you know, you'd have to put Fournier, but like you would
Yeah.
keep Quickly and Grimes. But
Yeah, I would do that. I would do
Yeah,
that right now
definitely.
for sure.
Yeah.
Like I
If you had to
think
give
you
up
have to do
Mitch?
that.
No,
No, that's
but
changes.
I'm starting.
Okay.
Then I would start Brunson and Mitchell and put Grimes at the 3. It'd be small, but I'd do that.
And I will say this: I think one of the things that is worth mentioning is like I want to bring this up. I think we can wrap up with this. We've seen a bunch of games now where the Knicks don't have Julius Randle. Not a bunch, but a couple games, right, where we don't have Julius Randle. And this is now, I think this is Obi Toppin's 12th career start. And you mentioned, you touched on this earlier. When Obi starts, when you know he's going to play a bunch of minutes, when he can get into the rhythm of a game, when he can get in and he can start, he knows like if I miss these 2 shots, I'm still going to get another few minutes here. When he doesn't have to play with that kind of like weight of the world on his shoulders type of thing, you see a different player.
Mm-hmm.
And I think stylistically, at least for me, and again, this is a very small sample size, so I don't even necessarily 100% know that I feel this is definitely the case. But like, you see how much more space there is on the floor, and forget the space.
No, it's much better.
Yeah, there's the spacing is better. I think the decision making. You watch the tempo with which the Knicks play, and I'm not just talking about how many possessions they get up in a game, but I'm talking about in the half court, how much more the ball moves side to side, how much more it's quick. It's quick. I get the ball, swing. I get the ball, drive. Like it's not a guy.
There
There's
wasn't a
not
pun with quick.
Yeah, no, but there's not 2 guys like with Brunson and Randle. It's 2 guys that like to really.
They'll use up the whole clock.
Yeah,
But
they like
to, that's another thing.
Right,
Randle didn't play against
hold on.
Cleveland.
Let me
Brunson
finish.
played a lot faster.
Can I finish? Please, can I finish? Okay. Like you get to see what this is like. And I think what you see is like that Brunson had the game he had against Cleveland isn't because Obi Toppin started that game. Obi Toppin only played 17 minutes that game. But I think what you see is like when Brunson is empowered as like clear-cut number 1 guy, and you put him with these guys who play with more tempo and make quicker decisions, I feel like the potential for that group, and it might involve upgrading on Obi Toppin, upgrading on RJ Barrett, whoever it is, eventually in a trade or whatever the hell, however you do it. I think the potential for that group is higher than and this has been effective, so I'm not knocking Tibbs or the front office or anything. I think the ceiling for that play style, that group, how they would play, how they can progress forward is higher than the grind it out, ISO heavy, slow it down, we're going to beat the shit out of you stuff that we see when we play with Randle, which plays to Randle's strengths. So it's like you play to his strengths. I get it. I just think it's a totally different style. And I wonder if like, I'm not, Randle is not David Lee and Obi Toppin isn't Draymond Green. But like, I wonder if there is something there to the idea of like putting a team with Jalen Brunson as its best player in a different context than the one that we saw this year isn't worth considering as an option, especially because Julius Randle's played great this year. And this is not a backhanded comment. He's been great this year. You rehabbed his value, right? Like part of the argument for keeping him last summer that a lot of people made was you're going to trade him. You're going to have to give up stuff to get off his contract now. You're trading him at a low. Let him play with Brunson. See how he responds to having a true floor general, whatever. You did it. He was an all-star, a deserved all-star this year. He might make an all-NBA team this year, which would be deserved as well. His value has rehabbed. You did it. You did the hard part. Now the hardest part is like, do you consider trading him for plus value, which may be available to you? And if so, like, do you like, and you would only do that if you really believe that this addition, like this, a different roster construction, I guess, a different style of play could unlock a higher upside of your team. And I don't know. Like, I just think it's an interesting thing to consider.
Let me ask you, do you think Boston would do him for Brown straight up?
If they think Brown's going to leave, I think you have to consider that at least, right?
Especially if Julius is all NBA again this year?
I think you have to consider it because one, Julius is locked in, which is nice for them, right? They don't have to worry about, he's going to leave in 2 years, 3 years, whatever. The other part too is like the 4 is their most problematic position because Al Horford, who is shooting the shit out of the ball this year, he's like 36, 37. I think the defensive drop off with him has been noticeable to me when I've watched him this year. Grant Williams, bless his soul, not sure he's the one. And like, that's a problem spot. Randle's 28. He signed up until 31, 32. So you're basically locking in his prime years here. It's definitely worth considering. And like a straight up scenario, it's not an atrocious idea, especially if you think Brown is going to leave. I think it's, and for the Knicks, like, I'm sorry, but when I see these like more mobile units around Brunson, I just get like, to me, that's just I think there's more upside there.
You're saying he gets unlocked, right? He gets unlocked.
Yeah, and it's not just him. Like, I feel like I think you bring a lot of things to the table, like defensively, especially. I like the flexibility they have with these smaller, or not just smaller, fuck smaller. That's the worst way to describe it, but more mobile, active defenders around Brunson. I really think they benefit from it. And even if their defensive rating stays the same, they're so much more versatile in what they can do defensively. Like the level they were trapping at against Cleveland, I've not seen that from the Knicks ever under Tibbs. Like the Knicks play like this is what we do, and we do this all the fucking time. That was totally different. That was like, we're going to trap Garland and Mitchell at the top of the key, and then we're going to let you go 4v3, but we're going to bet we can keep making those rotations and bother you, and you have to make 3, 4, 5 plays before you get a clean shot off. And like, I don't know, I just see that stuff, and that's exciting to me. And it's like, it's not really a knock on Randle. I just think players impact how you have to deploy your talent. And Randle is, for better or worse, like, he takes a lot of the oxygen in the room, right? Like, he is the center of the universe at times when he is on the floor for the Knicks. And so you have to cater to him. That's part of us. Every star gets catered to a certain degree. And I just think, like, I don't know, like, it's hard for me to shake that feeling. And this is an inherent bias as somebody who like was very much like, get rid of Randle last summer. Like, I move on. I don't like this. So maybe that crops up as soon as I see like Obi Toppin have 2 good games. I'm like, well, what if we just go back to that? And I don't know, but like, I just think it's worth considering. I really do.
I mean, we'll see. If the Celtics don't get to the Eastern Conference Finals this year, it's going to be a disappointment. It really, since they were in the finals last year, and they got the same team. So it could be, if they lose in the second round, that you're going to see some movement, because I think we all agree, Brown does not appear happy for sure. And so if that is going to be worse, he's going to play out next season, and he's going to leave and walk for nothing. So they're smart. I think Brad Stevens is smart. He's going to make a move and see what they can get for him. Julius Randle, with all of his stuff, like you said, for all the reasons you said, he would fit there perfectly. He would fit there, and Brown would fit with us perfectly. Of course, we have to do something with RJ. I don't know what they do, but you put Brown there, and then you give Obi the other side, we'd be in good shape. I think
RJ looks pretty good at the 4.
It's
small ball. Yeah.
It opens
but again,
up,
mobile, and he's just. I mean, I wonder if he would rebound better at the 4 too, because like, I think when your role is a little bit more defined in that perspective, I think he hasn't been as.
So you like RJ in his role?
Well, I think at the 3, like, one thing that's been criticized is that his rebounding hasn't been as great as you would hope, but you're tasked with a lot of responsibility on the perimeter. So if he was in that position as the 4, there were times against Cleveland it didn't work out well, but I wonder if he would be, with kind of more of a focused, I don't want to say limited, but a focused responsibility. I think he's like, I don't think he's like I think when he boxes out, his technique is good. I think he's strong enough to box out. I think that could work.
Yeah, I mean,
that's possible. That is possible.
Yeah. It's just it'll always intrigue me because we've never really seen it, and I'm open to just people being like, you're an idiot. Why would you do that? But I can't deny that, like, it's not so much a Randle thing as more of just like a play style thing.
It's a spacing thing too.
Here's where I would push back. It's not so much that it's a crazy idea because Randle is that good. It's more that we have seen Randle play with a fast pace. We saw it for it was like a month or two last year. So here's the two things. The one thing is I think Randle's capable of playing like that. And if he comes back healthy against Cleveland, I absolutely think the way that worked, how much of a game changer it is to get Brunson matched up onto Donovan Mitchell.
Oh my God!
Or
by
to
the way,
get
that was embarrassing.
Yeah, but
he
a lot
straight
of
up deep he flambéed.
it was
Donovan
almost
Mitchell.
like
That
we'd
was
seen
insane.
it was almost like we'd seen it before.
Yeah.
Last year, before before Mark Cuban decided to buy Twitter Blue.
Yeah.
The point is getting, or even when forget Donovan Mitchell, if Brunson is downhill and he's at if Brunson gets to the free throw line and there's no one on his grill, you've lost the possession. That's where I'm at, and so and that's the thing. Early in the season, we were well, they play ISO because of Brunson and Randle. And I to your point, I think that without Randle, it's no, Brunson likes to push, and maybe it's true with Randle without Brunson. But the thing is, I've seen Randle play with a fast pace, and I think he's not the same type of he's not going to get the alley oops that Obi does, but he's capable of that. I don't think that's an issue. You might have to sub him a little bit more, but that's fine. What was interesting to me is that after that hectic herky-jerk pace of the Cleveland game, the first half, Brunson, I'm sure you didn't watch the game, but Brunson was just short on. He airballed a floater from 8 feet.
Yeah, he was missing a lot of chippies.
He was missing chippies. He had a wide open three that he just hasn't missed this year. Washington just decided not to guard him. He was not even close. It was way short. So I do wonder how sustainable that is for him. So those would be the two things I would bring up. But I think what's really interesting is, can you get Randle to play that play style? And it doesn't have to be. I don't
think you can, and I'll tell you why. Because I don't think his processing speed is good enough. The difference between him and Obi is he's not going to be the individual shot creating talent that Randle is, but he just everything is quick, everything is fast. And that is, I think that I can't believe I talked for 20 fucking minutes and I couldn't come up with this until now. But that is very specifically what I wonder. I think that.
But hasn't that been the biggest improvement in Randle's game?
It has.
On the short roll, his processing is much better this year.
We still see at the end of games, end of quarters, pretty consistently, his decision making isn't great. And I think for as much improvement as he's made as a processor, you still see, how many times a game do you see him draw the double, then he can't just make the simple swing pass out, right? He's got to step through the double, jump in the air, and then throw it to somebody across the court. It's he never makes the simple play, which effectively is trusting your teammate to capitalize on advantages and build on them. And I think that is a limit. I think that really is limiting, unless you are so great individually that it's worth it. I think not that Kawhi is. I think Kawhi is one of one in terms of in this generation as a ISO mid post scorer type of dude, but he does slow the game down. He brings things to a halt, and when you feed Kawhi a lot, it gets into an ISO IV offense.
Kawhi is what we would have all hoped Melo would.
Right.
If Melo, in a modern sense, I think he would have become that.
Right. And really, what I'm saying is, if Julius was such a great offensive talent that
he's walked that line, though. He's been close this year.
It walked that line. Honestly, what do you I feel pretty confident Jalen Brunson can be a top 2 or 3 guy on a very high level contending team. I believe that. I
think if you have the right team,
I still have a lot of reservations about Julius, and I won't stop having those reservations until I see him in the playoffs and it doesn't look like it did. And honestly, I cannot shake this feeling. But since that first half against Miami on whatever the hell it was, it's on Wednesday. I mean, that was as bad of a Julius performance as we had seen. And it looked a lot like that guy in that Hawks series. And we know that was a big game. We know that there was a lot of talk before the game, the Knicks must win, blah, 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 blah. It looked like a guy that was tight and that was feeling the pressure. And that stuff worries me. I can't deny that. And I won't. I'm 100% open here. That game definitely, it's ingrained in here now. I
I think that
I need to see Julius in the playoffs, and I need to see him play. He doesn't need to be the same guy he is in the regular season, but he's got to be a good player. He's got to be way better than he was, obviously, in 2021. And I just need to see the decision making, the effort. I mean, the defensive stuff against Miami was insanely bad to watch. Some of his efforts in that game were like, there was one play where he literally just stood in the paint and ignored Cody Martin, who got wide open in the corner for a jumper. And I'm like,
yeah, he doesn't add value on defense at a position where it's pretty important to add value.
He does when he cares. That's the most frustrating part.
But
that's the most frustrating part.
That's your point.
Like,
yeah. If he doesn't do it consistently, he doesn't do it. That's kind of that's part of it. But the other thing, like, to me, it's less. I think that if he plays next to Brunson, he's going to get enough. He's not going to shoot whatever he did against Atlanta, 33%. I think it's, can you win in different ways, right? So if you play the Cavs, can you play fast? I think if, like, of the teams that they would face that are above them, right? Against the Cavs, I'd want to play fast. Against Boston, I'd want to play fast. Against Philly, I'm not so sure I would, or that it's as important. And against Milwaukee, I don't know that there's a good strategy.
Oh, I think it's important against Philly because Joel Embiid, that motherfucker don't want to be running up and down.
Yeah, but that's more of a Mitch thing than a Randle thing. But the point I'm making is, like, what? So I think that, to your point, I would agree with it from the perspective of, is there another guy who can give you the opportunity to play fast and slow?
It's hard to find those guys too, to be fair.
I mean, like, if you talk about Porzingis, he gives you more spacing, right? But he's not a great transition player.
Yeah, and actually, and I will say this too, like, we mentioned Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown isn't exactly a great processor either. So, like, if the argument I'm making, right, is that, like, I think, going for a more high level processor in that spot that Randle is in, it would be wrong for me to say that and then suggest also that Jaylen Brown is the answer.
But Brown is a way better consistent effort on defense, which we don't get from Julius.
I agree. And I just, and he opens up the floor in a way that's very, like, I know Randle's shooting a high volume from three and it's effective. He's been good this year, but, like, I still don't, the spacing is just different. Like, I don't care. It's just totally different when you have these smaller looks, even though, like we know Josh Hart, that guy, if I had $1 for every time he decided not to take a wide open three, I'd be a very rich man.
Shout out Pablo Prigioni.
but like, even when he does that, the floor is different. Like, it is more open. And like, look, we've seen the lineups with him and RJ, and I'm like, even when they were Brunson, I'm like, I know that neither of these guys is getting respected as a shooter, but it still feels different. And I can't quite put my finger on how to verbalize that effectively. And it could be a variety of different things, and it could be a variety of different potential players that you could sub in for Julius if you were to look to move him this summer that maybe provide the type of impact I'm talking about. But, like, it's not an easy decision to make for sure. And it's not one I'm even necessarily convinced they have to make. I just think, one, you should be open to it. And two, until I see him play well in the playoffs, I'm just going to always have that in the back of my head. It's just something I can't shake because, again, like, that Miami game,
Brunson didn't play, right?
No, Brunson played the Miami game. He didn't play down the stretch.
He didn't play the Miami game.
It was
quickly. But like,
you're talking about first half of that's true.
Yeah, it was just like watching that game. I was like, that first quarter, I tweeted something out during the first quarter. I was like, I have no fucking idea what Julius is doing out there tonight. That's how it felt watching him. I was like, I don't understand his.
Do you think that maybe the ankle was already bothering him at that point? And
I don't think so. This was not that did not look like a. That looked like a very disengaged guy. That's the part that worries me. I'm like, how are you disengaged during this game? Like, it's a weird one, man. He's a weird dude. Like, he's clearly, like, and he's, to his credit, he's dealt with a lot of this stuff. He's talked about it, and I give him a ton of credit for that. I think it's really pretty awesome that he bounced back from the season he had last year and delivered the season he had this year. That says a lot about him, and the work he's put in both on the court and obviously mentally, which he's talked about. But, like, it's so hard to fully trust him. Really, that's ultimately what it comes down to for me. It's like, I don't know. I just don't know. I don't have a good feeling about it, which is why I need to see the playoffs. I got to see him in the playoffs. I got to see how he does. I want to see how he responds, because we know that defensive game plans in the playoffs are totally different. Teams know they're going to take away your first option. They're going to take away your second option. They're going to make you go to your third, fourth, fifth stuff that you like to do.
Your one dribble pull up, your two dribble pull up,
right? Who you are at the elbow, but Julius struggled with that last time he was in, and this time obviously we have Brunson, which should help him. But I still wonder. I don't know. I keep saying the same shit over and over again, but it's just
I think he's generally a different player when somebody else sets him up. I think the idea that the Knicks should be able to go fast and not be constrained by anyone is worth bringing up.
Yeah.
I think where I'm more optimistic is I don't think if Tibbs was like, dude, run the fucking floor. If Tibbs actually said, you jog up the floor, and Cleveland can double Brunson, or they can still get to their matchups even when we push, and you're gonna sit. If he does those kind of things, I think he's fully capable of those things, and I think the processing speed is, but I also push back a lot of Toppin's addition on the transition is just running the floor and going hard. It's not always. I think the processing shows up even more in the half court, which I think Julius has been pretty good at it.
But I think that's part of pace. I think pace is pace to me isn't just about the number of possessions you get up. I always used to say this about the Spurs when they were at their best. The Spurs at their best played with pace, even though they were a slow pace team.
When they were in transition,
and not just that, in the half court, how many set? It's we run a set, didn't happen. Go to your second set. Go to your third set. They got to so many options. And I feel like when you play with, and this is not just on Randle, this is also partly on, when you play with Brunson and Randle, I feel like you get one set, and if that doesn't work, you swing it to one guy and they ISO, and that's that. And it's a weird thing. I mean, again, it's not just Julius. Tibbs is the coach. He dictates play style. Jalen Brunson also likes to pound the ball a lot. So RJ Barrett has obviously had his issues this year in many ways offensively. So it's not just on Randle, to be fair to him. It's just.
But if there's one thing, I don't know if this is a Randle thing, but what I've noticed of late, I tweeted about this. The Knicks have been much better at relocating. So IQ is not a blow by guy, right? Even now, he's a quick guy. Unless it's a mismatch, he's usually he likes a screen. He likes to do those things. So he gets stopped on a lot of his drives. And I've seen a lot more of those end with RJ lifting or Grimes lifting or Hart lifting and giving an outlet that isn't just it used to be early in the season or even last season, especially, he'd get stopped and he'd have to throw a looping pass close to half court. Now those are turning into threes because you can point to all of those and you'd be like, oh, the defender fell asleep. But the defender fell asleep because there's 10 eyes on Quickly. There's 10 eyes on Brunson. I don't know if this is related to Randle, but I'm seeing a lot more relocation and lifting and guys taking advantage of the fact that even if it's a momentary distraction from their guy, and I think to your point, that's part of pace in the half court. That's part of the fact that when one action doesn't work, there isn't this lag to the next action. It's just that next action flows immediately into another one because somebody else took advantage of an opening. And I don't know, maybe that is Randle related.
Yeah. I'm not sure where Raw Hebrew went, but I guess this is probably a good place to end it anyways. Stacy, let the people know where they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
Stacy Patton 89. I'll plug all the good work at the Strickland and Draft Strickland.
Awesome, man. This was fun. I will plug all the work at the Strickland draft stuff. I know. I think you said that you were going to be on a draft Strickland coming up soon, if I remember correctly.
No, that one dropped.
So, okay, so yeah, I have not listened to that yet, but check that out. I'm sure it's very good. And I know Prez did one with Chris last week that I also haven't checked out, but apparently that was really good too. So definitely check out the draft stuff. I know it looks like the Knicks may not have a pick because our Dallas Mavericks are continuing to flounder. But yeah, there's still a lot of great content going out there. Obviously, very happy the Knicks made the playoffs. Look out for all of our preview stuff on there. And yeah, all right. Well, that's our pod for today. Hope everybody has a great night. And I will see you on Friday.